premium cigar retailers in specific zoning districts. Drug paraphernalia stores, which is a store that sells drug paraphernalia, that use would be expressly prohibited in the zoning ordinance. I like to note that these regulations would only apply prospectively to new tobacco retailers, meaning that existing properly permitted tobacco retailers, they would be allowed to continue operating as a legal non-conforming use with existing tobacco retailing rules that are in place. The proposal would also establish enforceable and measurable limits on tobacco retailing to ensure that retailers that are selling tobacco as an accessory use, they don't evolve into a smoke shop, which has been a major problem in enforcement within the city. So the new proposed limits would include a 10% cap on gross floor area dedicated to tobacco products, a maximum of 10 linear feet dedicated to tobacco products, a maximum of 25% of gross receipts related to tobacco products, and a requirement that tobacco-related products and signage not be displayed in a way where it's be visible from the exterior of the store. Staff believes that these reasonable limits will assist in future permitting and enforcement efforts. Staff is proposing to repeal an existing REACH code requirement that requires newly constructed buildings in San Leandro to be all electric. For background, a few years ago in 2022, the council adopted REACH code amendments to the Green Building Code to require that most new buildings within the city be all electric, meaning no natural gas connections within the building, and for the purpose of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. This was to implement the city's climate action plan, which encouraged all electric construction as a way to reduce future greenhouse gas emissions. More recently, in 2023, there was a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision that made a ruling that federal law preempts local regulation of gas appliances. And this ruling by the Ninth Circuit Court necessitates the repeal of the city's all-electric requirement. And so that repeal is before you this evening. The code amendments also include amendments to the municipal code to restrict oversized vehicle parking on city streets, highways, alleys, or public parking lots to a maximum of 2 hours. These amendments are intended to be responsive to increasing concern from residents and businesses about oversized vehicle parking on city streets. However, if adopted and enforced, the amendments may also potentially impact unhoused individuals by reducing viable parking options for those oversized vehicles. Finally, the city is proposing code amendments to refine regulations pertaining to the use of waterways within the city of San Leandro. For background, the city's municipal code currently regulates the portion of San Francisco Bay that falls within the boundaries of the city of San Leandro. However, the existing code has been inadequate in providing for the regulation of boaters and waterways outside of the San Leandro Marina. While the city closed the marina in 2023 and prevented boats from using the marina in 2024, boats have still been observed anchoring overnight in San Leandro waterways. The proposed amendments would address this issue by prohibiting anchoring, living aboard, or beaching a vessel in San Leandro waters except for permitted special events. The amendments would authorize the city to issue a notice to abate or perform emergency removal as needed for any violations. In conclusion, staff recommends that the council introduce 2 ordinances and adopt a resolution amending the administrative, zoning, and municipal codes in the city of San Leandro and lifting the temporary zoning moratorium regarding tobacco retailing. I'm here as well as members of the project team to answer any questions that the council may have. Thank you.
So thank you for your presentation. I think what we're going to do first is take public comment. So I'm going to open the hearing, hear from the public for questions or concerns that they may have. I will close that hearing, come back for further questions, comments from council members prior to accepting a motion and a subsequent vote. So at this point in time, you should feel comfortable taking a seat nearby. And we will, at what time is it? 7:36, we are opening the public hearing. Are there individuals in person or online who would like to address the council on this matter?
Mayor, we have 3 hands raised on Zoom and 6 speaker cards.
Okay, let's take the 3 hands on Zoom first, and then we'll come to our in-room speakers.
The hands raised on Zoom, the first speaker is Robert Hertzfeld, followed by Elizabeth Graham. Robert, you may now unmute yourself.
This is Robert Hertzfeld. I represent the San Leandro Building and Business Association. I am speaking on the code amendment for oversized RV parking. Our association represents most of the businesses here on Griffith and Burroughs, Factor Avenue. As the city knows, we had an RV encampment on our street. A great effort was made to remove these vehicles. Up till that point in time, crime in our neighborhood was out of control. This went on for about 3 years. Every business here could tell you a horror story. Since those vehicles have been removed, crime has dropped to 0 in our neighborhood. It has been fabulous. If this code amendment helps remove these vehicles, keep a situation like ours from beginning in the first place, you have our full endorsement. We believe this code amendment will go a long way in keeping San Leandro safe, clean, a good place to live and work. And thank you, City Council, and everyone on your team that has helped us thus far.
Thank you. The next speaker is Elizabeth Graham, followed by Cecilia. Elizabeth, you can now mute yourself.
Thank you so much. My name is Elizabeth Graham. I'm the CEO of the California Fuels and Convenience Alliance. I am representing the fuel and convenience retailers who has expressed serious concerns about the proposed tobacco retail ordinance. This ordinance discriminates against new convenience stores, and I'm going to intercept here real quick, just reviewing the presentation given. Right now, there's no exemption for gas stations, and so we would like to propose that convenience stores, whether they're new or current gas stations and convenience stores, are allowed to operate under their current or future tobacco licenses. There's no clear rationale for why tobacco sales are appropriate at other retailers, but not for convenience stores. Excluding new convenience stores from the tobacco sales eliminates a major revenue stream for crucial business vitality. Most of what will happen is you will see some of these gas station and convenience stores start to, whether they're long-term or incoming, they will not be able to continue to expand. For public health perspective, this ordinance has limited effectiveness, restricting retail types other than overall tobacco availability as minimal impact on smoking rates, since tobacco remains readily available at drugstores and liquor stores and large supermarkets throughout the city. So we urge San Leandro to find balanced solutions that address public health concerns while supporting local businesses and fair competition. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker is Robert, followed by Cecilia, followed by Liz. Robert, you're free to speak. Oh, apologies. Cecilia, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Flores. I'm a San Leandro resident and an employee of Building Futures. Restricting oversized parking in San Leandro will impact our neighbors. Many of them are San Leandrons that are living in their RVs. Forcing our neighbors to constantly move impacts their stability. People are unable to keep employment or work towards housing if they are constantly worrying about losing their RVs and having to move from place to place. This will not help us end homelessness. The housing process, unfortunately, is very long. We have had people forced out of San Leandro with the encampment sweeps and with the forced removal of RVs. They lose out on housing opportunities because we lose contact. Please don't pass this until we have a safe parking available for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Liz Varela, followed by San Leandro Chamber of Commerce. Liz, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, I'm Liz Varela. I'm the Executive Director of Building Futures, and I'm also a resident of San Leandro my whole life. And I am going to want to oppose this this new ordinance until we have exhausted all other options for an RV safe parking for these folks. Have we done, can we ask ourselves as a city, have we done everything we can to ensure that we are balancing those folks who live in San Leandro, those folks who have businesses in San Leandro, with the needs of our unsheltered homeless folks who also are long time residents of San Leandro also and deserve our consideration and respect. There are lots of successful examples of safe parking for RVs. And from the simple fact that this is the first time today that I'm hearing that this was even considered, I don't think we have thought this through. I don't think we have gotten feedback. I don't think as the major homeless provider in San Leandro and not having been asked or work with on this or even hearing about this till today means that we haven't done our due diligence to make sure that we're balancing all the needs in San Leandro. And until we do that, I think it's unconscionable. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is San Leandro Chamber of Commerce, and followed by Jenny Madsen. Chamber of Commerce, you can unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody. This is Emily Grego, President and CEO of the San Leandro Chamber of Commerce. There's a lot happening in this hearing that affects business. And I do have to say that as far as the oversized parking, businesses have really been battling with this for several years. As you've heard from the side of town where the Coca-Cola plant is, and even up and down Doolittle, I've taken pictures of not just RVs, but an abandoned boat being parked on the side of the road. And I've got photos to show of that. So it's been an issue. There have been businesses that have said, to come down our street, bringing visitors to our business, it's really kind of horrific seeing all of the RVs and furniture out along the street and whatnot. So perhaps this is a good plan to start with, because everybody seems to be coming to San Leandro to park their oversized vehicle or abandon it. So this has been a major issue for businesses for a long time. We support any work that can be done to help solve this and keep San Leandro safe and clean. And so we support this. And if more needs to be done to make this equitable, as our member Building Futures has stated, we're happy to look at that. But businesses have really been struggling with this for quite some time. And so at this point in time, we do support whatever the city needs to do so that the city feels safe and clean, and businesses can have their employees come to work and feel safe and not scared. So that's also a part of our community. So we support this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jenny Madsen, followed by Douglas Spalding. Jenny, you can unmute yourself.
So thank you. This is Jenny Madsen, and I just have to say that until the city can see its way clear to having a safe parking area, you're going to have businesses don't want to see people that they don't want to see. They just want to have revenue. I live in the part of town that is mostly industrial, and a lot of these streets where these businesses are not well traveled. Most people in San Leandro never see them. You should have used Eden Road as a safe parking place. There are so many options for this. And instead of criminalizing the people who, because they're San Leandrins, they are people who've lived here, who paid rent, who probably even owned houses here at one point. You just cannot eliminate people like this. This is not blight. These are people. We need safe parking spaces in San Leandro, and you guys have known it for as long as you've been hearing this from businesses. And nobody wants to take any initiative on this because it's not somebody you care about. I can be done now. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Douglas Spalding.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. Greetings from Kings Canyon National Park. Yeah, I mean, I oppose this legislation. We are not going to end the unhousing issue by criminalizing it, by making parking bans. People just going to move to a new spot. The unhoused are not like criminal and dangerous. Perhaps the camps are unsightly, but this idea that, oh my God, I'm in danger because somebody's out of their house. And I just don't think there's any evidence for that. We do need, and this has been on the agenda or not on the agenda, but the issue has been around for many years. We need some safe parking venue. I like Jenny's suggestion. I think you don't have to be that creative to look around town and sort of figure out where it is. And I also think that we need some safe camping options, especially when we get around to wintertime again, which is only a few months away now. So I urge you not to pass this this ordinance and to give it more thought and to really try to solve the problem. Positive legal options may go a long way to help solving the crisis. Criminalizing it's not going to go anywhere for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The last speaker is Jamie Rojas.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. My name is Jaime Rojas with the National Association of Tobacco Outlets. Similar to what many of the speakers prior to me has said, including the Chamber of Commerce San Leandro, many of these drafted ordinances hasn't even been thought out through or brought in the input prior to staff drafting these from different segments of the community, especially the business community. Almost 9 years ago, when San Leandro brought in a flavor ban, they discussed about an annual report coming back on the impact of a flavor ban, which has not been done at all year after year after year. And now changes in the tobacco retail license, our fear factor, if including the grandfathered current retail stores, is not allowing these retail stores to be able to sell their stores with their tobacco licenses. And the reason why is, as we know, we've said this before years in the past, but I'll repeat it again, is that many of these owners rely on their stores and put all their money, all their investment into these stores. It's their 401k when they sell. We want to verify, we want to confirm, and we want to make sure that these owners are protected. They've been here for decades. They support the community. They employ the community, and we want to make sure that they're also protected when they sell their business for retirement. In addition, as it was brought up also before, this also prevents many of the owners from updating or modernizing over time, leaving for possible deterioration of their stores or lack of upgrades. No one wants to see a store that's run down. The ability to significantly change the non-conforming use of a store doesn't make much sense. It's a highly regulated industry already. Enforcement is the number one thing. So if there's a
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Mayor, that concludes our remote public comment.
Okay, so we are closing online public comment and closing that part of the hearing, the online portion of our hearing. And we'll come into the chamber to continue with that part of our public hearing.
The first three speaker cards are Edward Escobar, Amirdeep Brar, AD, and Gurpreet Mann.
Hello, my name is hello, my name is Edward Escobar, Coalition for Community Engagement, Citizens Unite. We did the recalls, Oakland Mayor. I want to address a number of items here that were mentioned here as being amended. Those people who called in like to have their addresses so we could send those RVs to their properties, because they have to understand, San Leandrins don't want another Oakland here. They've talked the same nonsense in Oakland, and that same nonsense has gotten the destruction of Oakland. Can't have that happen in San Leandro. We have to learn from Oakland's mistakes. Moving along, small business is the backbone of this country, and it is under assault. Now, I understand other communities are reaching out to Oakland. A lot of small businesses are leaving Oakland, and they're coming to the surrounding adjoining communities. So don't ruin this opportunity for businesses to locate here in San Leandro. Now, I am not pro-tobacco. I don't smoke. I don't drink. But you cannot stifle the backbone of America, which is small business. I look at it. I look at the faces of these owners. These are the ethnic groups that are being targeted, being discriminated against. Now, they have been deeply entrenched and are a vital part of our communities. They contribute, they care. Please support them in their endeavors, because now is not the time. Let's kick this can down the road and let's address it at a later date, not now, because our economy is under attack and is very destabilized. So we need to support these business owners. We care about them and they care about us. They care about public safety. So thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Amardeep Brar.
So Amardeep, before you speak. So I'll give my general warning that I give at every meeting, regardless if I like what you're saying or don't like what you're saying. No clapping, cheering, screaming. We just we want to hear from everyone. We want to hear an objective, your perspective. And so let's keep the extra stuff down.
Thank you. Yep, we are all professionals and we'll keep it like that. Again, my name is Amardeep Brar. I'm here to talk about the tobacco ordinance. And I'm reading this. It says convenience stores will no longer be eligible for tobacco licensing. There are 10 7-Eleven stores, and they are considered as convenience stores. So we want clarity on that. 7-Eleven is an essential business. We were there when everybody shut down during COVID. We were open 24 hours. So why this is being discriminated against essential business? If you look at all the faces here, almost 25 of us are here. All of us, 99% are immigrants. So that's where we see it as this ordinance coming to close the against the immigrant communities. None of us were part of any business community meeting with the Planning Commission. So we request if we can have a detailed meeting to go over this ordinance so that we can go over our questions. Smoke shops are not convenience stores. As the Planning Commission was stating, their motive is to cut down where all the illegal tobacco is being sold, and the smoke shops are a big part of that. 7-Eleven stores or liquor stores are there supporting communities with groceries, liquor, and wine. We are not drug stores. And if in future we want to give the licenses to the big corporations, that will leave out your small businesses, all the communities We live here. We employ local people.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. The next speakers are Gurpreet Mann, Dave S., and Inderjeet Sidhu.
Hold on, just there you go. Okay. I was waiting for your microphone to turn on.
I'll start again. Good evening to all. My name is Gurpreet Mann. I'm a 7-Eleven owner. So I'm in a convenience store business for 20 plus years now. So I just still need a clarity because Mr. Lee announces all the proposals, changes to the tobacco ordinance, but we are still not very clear existing owners who has a valid tobacco license. When they go to sell that location, the new owner can able to apply and get the license or not. So this is, we never heard from him, neither is written there. So we really want that thing, that new owner should get it, because whenever anybody want to sell, 80%, 90%, the person wants to retire. So if tomorrow he wants to retire and the other person can't able to get that tobacco license, basically his value is gone. So the business is not feasibly on financially. Nobody wants it. The guy want to retire and he can't sell it. He can't get out from there. So basically it kinda just hurt all the year hard work he did it to get this business going through the tough times, up and downs, helping the community, city, all the rules, regulations, he followed it. But now see, you all council member, mayor, you also knows it. Last few years, how many break-ins, robberies we gone through. So these are done by the unknown people. So we get out in 2 days, 3 days, mentally, physically, financially, sometimes take weeks. But now this ordinance is done by the known people and it will hurt permanently to us. And it will not be, it's not easy to come out from these things. So we really appreciate if Mr. Lee involve us in this changes, give us a chance to explain. He definitely have a good experience, but the person who are in the business, running the business daily basis, has definitely more inputs, better.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. The next speakers are Dave S., Inderjeet Sidhu, and Anne Sekon.
Hello, thank you, Council, for giving me the 2 minutes to speak on the tobacco retailing. I own I'm part owner of BevBox, which is a chain throughout Northern California. We have 20 stores. We've seen tobacco retailing ordinance in many cities, and I'm going to give you just 3 learnings that we've had for what it's worth. Number 1 is most cities, when they allow the business feedback, you get to a point with a better outcome. So I think in this scenario, I'm not sure, we haven't heard anything, and any of the colleagues that I've interacted with have not been involved or informed about what it is and how it works and been able to just provide feedback. So I would say that's learning number 1. The second learning we've had in a lot of these cities is that there's this issue about existing stores and how these new ordinances affect those existing stores. Because you have a lot of retailers that have owned places for a decade or 2 decades or 3. They're getting close to retirement. They're immigrants, especially nowadays when they've got a lot of other pressures happening. They're worried about, ICE and this and that. And so this is another thing they're worried about. They're like, do I trust what's happening and not? And usually the trust is broken when they're not involved. And so I think it goes back to point number 1. So I think trying to decipher what happens to existing versus new is important. The last thing one other thing is that we noted is once you got the retailers involved, almost all of them agreed that an ordinance was needed. None of them want proliferation of all these smoke shops and all this tobacco next to schools and all of that. So none of them were actually against it. They actually wanted it. They wanted to get some sort of ordinance in place. So I think there's a lot of feedback that they can provide for you. And then finally, one of the things that most cities missed was the fact that those that don't conform at all, that don't have any tobacco license, don't have any liquor licenses, the actual going after how to address them was missing. So I'd highly encourage, how do you go after?
Thank you. Your time is up. The next speaker is Inderjeet Sidhu, followed by Anne Sekor or Sekon, followed by Paul Sekon.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I represent today to San Francisco Monterey Bay Franchise 7-Eleven Franchise Association and also be American Petroleum Convenience Store Association in Northern California. And today I'm here, I came all the way from San Jose. All 7-Eleven franchisee in this city, we go through that part before. A couple of years ago, we will come here and you guys make decision that time also for the licensing thing, and it comes back again. I still not understand the language was written over here. What is difference between small business, mom, pop, liquor store and convenience store? For me is all they are same. They are serving same customers, same products. I don't know why we write it on a separate line. Convenience store would not longer be eligible for tobacco. What was the reason they write it down in that line? Number two, license will not be granted to new location supposed to be. What was the reason they write it down locations? Language is supposed to be, need to be written on, clarify it in this ordinance. But we, as other people they speak, we are the backbone of the community for the employment. I don't know if you guys not want to be develop more business in this city, then you can stop these things. But if you keep developing this business and also we the people, they are living here, serving them very well, we need to move with the all the population in growth. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Anne Sekor or Anne Sekon, followed by Paul Sekon, followed by Catherine Ralph.
We all know that small business is the backbone of our community. They support our schools, they support our footballs, our soccer teams, our basketball teams, etc. They're also, the majority of them are minorities. We all know that. And right now, minorities are being attacked. And I just don't think that every time we turn around, we should be looking at tobacco or any of this. I'm looking at today, how many ordinances are we looking at? I'm confused. I've been living in San Leandro for 51 years. I've never seen all these ordinances put together. Number two, there is not enough clarity as to what is really going on. I mean, I'm sure the staff work really, really hard, but the convenience store community, the stores, the small business owners are confused as to what is really happening. What are they looking at? So I'm just asking everybody to take it back to the table, inform some of these business owners so that they can share with you and they can get clearer on what's going on, because we all have to work together. I mean, you're saying locations, as Inderjeet says. Which locations are you talking about? Are you talking about the location next to my house? Are you talking about across town? What locations are we going to be saying, no, you can't have a tobacco license? It's just not clear. And then we all know here that education and targeted enforcement is what's going to work. And guys, wasn't it just a couple of years ago that we just passed that TRL where business owners are paying to police? We're paying the city to have the city police us? I mean, how much more do we need to do?
Thank you. Your time is up. Our next speakers are Paul Sekon, Catherine Rolfe, and Prashant Shah.
So here's a couple of things, because I do agree. Part of the problem that we've got is that it's the format is where we take all the input. I am tempted to answer some of your questions, but unfortunately, I think unless council advises me otherwise, because I think there is some confusion about facts,
A lot of confusion.
right? And I feel like we're getting a lot of speakers essentially making the same question that really there's no need to keep asking,
Yes.
because
If you could,
that's where the struggle is in this, because we want to be
if you
able,
can't answer, just pass, you know, and
I think as a matter of
you can help.
as a matter of process, we're going to take them all. And I apologize for the inefficiency of how
Okay.
this is structured by government law and all that kind of
I
stuff.
appreciate you.
But I completely understand the frustration.
Save us time, that's all.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So what we will do as a courtesy, because you want to address us with a actual ordinance up there,
Yeah.
I think that we can accommodate that request if you have it handy. And if not, maybe we can switch speakers while we look for it, or perhaps Mr. Lee, if you have it, Mr. Wayland Lee, if you have it in the presentation, if we can pop it back up. I don't know if you've got it, but I do think that this is a well-intentioned point. If we can accommodate it, it would be nice if we can put up the actual text of the ordinance. Okay, so we're going to just kind of pause just a second. Obviously, your time is not running. We're trying to be effective with everybody's time in the aggregate.
So I can see it. I don't know if, okay, perfect. Are we good? Can you hear me? All right. So the first question is in regards to the stores. What everybody wants to know is if I owned a store, let's say I got the store down the street and I decide to sell, can I sell and that tobacco license carry over when the guy replies? Because without that tobacco license, the store's dead. So that needs to be clarified, because otherwise everyone is going to be up in arms. Number two, it sounds like I don't know if you did a meeting, and if you did, I believe if you did, I know that there was one planning meeting, but it was on an Indian holiday. And if you notice, a lot of us are Indian and of Arabic descent. So if we can and before we do another first read, it'd be really, really nice if we could go back, have a meeting with you guys. I believe when we first started this, that's what happened. I was there in the very beginning. I'm the guy, just in case you know, I was the guy who put in the $7 for a 5-pack of cigars. So I'm on both sides, right? I understand, anti-tobacco. I understand tobacco. I'm that guy. I get it. It's fair. Like, I smoke a cigar every once in a while, but I also sold it, but I also have nephews. So, everyone has their vices. So I think that needs to be discussed. Number two, you guys put in drugstores or pharmacies. I thought in the TRL that pharmacies couldn't sell. So I'm not sure why that's there. So we may want to look at that again. I could be wrong. It could have been a different city, but we had 2 stores in 2 different cities, but we should just look into that. In regards to having signs outside, I believe that's a federal law. We can't have signs outside. And then, like, the Marble Man's gone. I hate to, that's it. In regards to what our advertisement is for tobacco, it is our sales space, like our behind the counter, our tobacco bar. It has to be behind the counter. You can't buy it. So, like, I'm kind of worried about you coming in and doing the measurements, because in Oakland they did it and they tormented a lot of immigrants. And I know that's not your intention, but that laws aren't, and we have laws, and now look at our government right now. Everyone's scared to go to work. So we have to be smart about what we're putting in.
Thank you. Sir, your time is up. Our next speakers are Catherine Rolfe, Prashant Shah, and Monesh Dosan.
Hello, Mayor and City Council members. I'm here because, first of all, I was coming to talk about Lake Chabot Road, but that'll be for later. But when I read through the materials for this meeting, I found out about the 2-hour parking limitation on large vehicles. And I, as a person who works with homeless folks in our town, found it to be an illogical, inhumane, and unconscionable displacement of some of our long-term San Leandro residents. As We have not provided them with any viable alternatives for safe parking for themselves and their families. So I'm backing up the comments from the Building Futures Executive Director and staff who were not consulted about this ordinance coming up or even discussing alternatives for our long-term residents. They need to be engaged in this discussion because they provide housing match services for the people living in their RVs. Businesses thrive because the residents support them and can bring in partners and partner with residents and with Building Futures to locate and support safe parking places for some of these most needy San Leandrans. We ask you to engage this organization and learn how you can be heard and be helpful in monitoring what's going on in the streets, not tolerating lawlessness, although some examples higher up are not such good ones on this, but just being tough and threatening isn't the way to keep San Leandro safe. Engaging and ensuring that everyone has space to live in a way that's safe is the way to go with this. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Prashant Shah, followed by Monesh Dosan.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Prashant, and I'm a business owner in San Leandro for more than 12 years now. Basically, as I see this ordinance, there are a lot of confusion, as Paul mentioned, and we do like to clear it. But I always like to see that, hey, if we can include in the process, at least we can provide our point of view and we can come to a conclusion that what makes sense. As I understand it, I think most of these things just doesn't make sense. We are limiting to certain area. It will have a limited health impact. We are just moving business from San Leandro to just across the street to San Lorenzo or Oakland. Our tax revenue, employees, all that just, it seems like completely counterintuitive. So I would strongly urge a council member to include a business owner. We have worked in the past where we came up with some of the TRL points, and I'm not sure, Mr. Lee and some others, we talked about some of the licensing requirement, more security, so we can make sure that we don't sell, or at least we add money to have a corrective action for teenage smoking. So I would encourage at least to have a conversation, and because as of it right now, as I see it, I just don't see a logic. It's not doing anything as far as health concern or reducing. It's just moving business from one city to another. I just look, and it's discouraging new business to come in San Leandro. I think we could all use new businesses here. We'll create new job investment. Just doesn't make sense. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. The last speaker card is Monesh Dosan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I was at the Planning Commission meeting, and during the Planning Commission meeting, we were very, very clearly told that licenses would be grandfathered upon the sale of a business. I don't see any of that over here. First of all, as many speakers have already pointed out, I would at this point really urge the City Council to defer their vote on this because there is no clarity around it. You are here to form public policy, and public policy needs to be designed around clarity and clear information, which is totally absent over here right now. Secondly, going by the wording of whatever material I have in front of me, it says no new convenience stores. Well, liquor stores and convenience stores are almost the same thing. It's just one label. We sell the same product. Third thing, you're permitting large supermarkets for coming in and obtaining tobacco licenses. So why are you discriminating against small businesses like us? And I've been in the city. I've been a businessman, a store owner in San Leandro for 27 years. And I've seen so many changes going on with tobacco licensing. I mean, it's like salami cutting, salami slicing. We'll take away menthols, we'll take away flavors. Okay, fine. There were good parts to it. But, you know, I mean, it's time. We are business owners. We are constantly working under a lot of environmental pressure. That is break-ins, robberies, whatever that's going on in the world today. So we cannot handle so much pressure. Please, we are not that resilient. We are very hardworking people, but we are not that resilient. Please do not break our backs. And please, we need some clarity.
Thank you. Your time is up. Mayor, that is our last speaker card on this item.
At 8:17, I'm closing the public hearing, and I'm going to invite Manager Lee to come back up here. Yeah, it'd be nice. We do have, I think, a number of questions that have come out, and I'm just going to try to tackle a few of them first because I think there is some real confusion. And then I'm going to go down council roll and we can just all ask questions, but I just want to clear the air on a couple of things. First, the tobacco licenses that are currently in place, if they were properly granted, are any of those at risk of being canceled?
No, if they would not be at risk of being canceled.
Okay, so they're not going to be canceled if they were properly granted. The second question, for all properly granted licenses, which I'm assuming all the people in this room have properly granted licenses, can those licenses be transferred with the sale of the business at the same location?
If the business was sold to another entity, that new buyer could apply for a TRL at that location. They would be eligible, yes.
Would be eligible to apply. And would we apply different criteria, or is it the same criteria under which the license was granted?
It would be the same criteria.
Okay. I think there's just been a lot of confusion about that in particular. I'm going to come down to council members to see what questions you'd like to ask. And you can discuss too. It doesn't just have to be questions. So whoever pops in first, I'm going to go to council member Bolt.
Yes, I think one of the other questions that I heard quite a few times is the 7-Elevens. Are they going to be able to continue with their process?
The existing 7-Eleven store would be allowed to continue under the existing regulations, yes.
A new 7-Eleven coming in, is that a convenience store? Is that a liquor store? What is that?
A new 7-Eleven coming into the city, as I understand the business, would be a convenience store.
And would they be allowed to get the TRL?
Not if it was in a location where there was not currently a tobacco retailer's license.
Thank you for saying location, because that brought me to another question. Are the locations laid out somewhere that we can reference so we know? Is it a distance from something besides like schools, like the normal federal rules?
So I mean, location, I mean, it's where tobacco is currently being sold. In those locations where there's an existing use that involves tobacco retailing, that use is allowed, and that use could be continue in that location under the
Okay, so
existing
you're
rules.
saying if a regular store already has a TRL at an address and then 7-Eleven buys them, they'll be able to continue, just like any other entity.
That's correct.
Okay, so there is no restriction on location just outside of zoning. Outside of normal zoning, like you can't do it in a residential area out of a home. I get that part. So, but I felt like there was questions coming in that were asking about location, meaning do we have restrictions besides our normal restrictions on selling tobacco as far as zoning goes? Is this infringing on any of that?
No, there's existing zoning rules in place that allows tobacco retailing in various zoning districts, provided that a business open legally, they were allowed under the zoning and can continue operating that in the manner they're currently operating.
Okay. Did we have a meeting with the community to bring them in?
We did not have a meeting. However, tobacco retailers were notified and provided an opportunity to comment at the moratorium, the extension of the moratorium at the Planning Commission meeting, which was considered in this City Council hearing. There's also a website prepared with information about the ordinance and contact information and my contact information to get more information about what was being proposed.
Okay, I'm going to move to the parking. We heard a lot about the parking too, and I'm only moving now because of the time, and I wanted to get these in. It was proposed to look for a safe parking site, but it didn't get enough votes at the at our priority setting meeting, and so therefore we didn't proceed that. And listening to the comments, I mean, I totally agree. Without a place for someone to go, it's hard to tell them to get out because then they just move, and that's what we deal with now. We already have a 72-hour limit on vehicles parked in one place, regardless of the length of them. So this is my question. If something's longer than 22 feet and it's parked on the street, are we now going over and saying, hey, we're going to ticket you immediately or after 24 hours, or where's that?
So the 72-hour parking requirement that applies to all vehicle types, some folks, including the businesses that called in, and at times council members have asked us about enforcement capabilities. And in the case of the oversized vehicles, we've received numerous complaints about the effect that they've had, and that 72 hours is a significant length of time. And so the proposed code language is for council's consideration. If you'd like enforcement of a shorter time period, the code would need to be updated to enable enforcement. The current code does not allow the police to ticket vehicles or work with vehicles that are not violating the 72-hour
Okay, real quick.
time
Gotta
frame.
get this in. Sorry. Are we going to ticket or tow?
So I would
Over
have
22 feet, are we going to ticket or tow immediately?
It would enable enforcement, and the process, my understanding, I'm looking back at PD, requires that we would post notice on the vehicle before we would tow it. So we would follow our normal legal,
24 hours, 72 hours.
right?
Okay.
And again, it's based on resources and calls we get for other, issues, and it's not going to be a blanket enforcement all at once at all times and all locations. It's
Yes.
as resources allow.
I love you. I know. Real quick, 22 feet. How do we get that number? Because I'm going to tell you right now, I had multiple trucks for work that were much longer than 22 feet, and I parked it in front of my house every day of my life for 21 years. And now we're going to be, it's bad enough that we have people unhoused living in vehicles that can't go somewhere. But now we're going to add into that fold the working family unit is going to get ticketed or towed and told to get out of the area based on the size of vehicle they had.
Yeah, the definition was drawn from other municipalities and other pieces of legislation that define oversized vehicles. You're correct. It's hard to find a cutoff that won't have some outliers where there might be somebody bringing home a vehicle from work. So that was not our intent to capture. But it is a common definition of oversized vehicle.
And when we say outliers, I'm going to tell you, San Leandro's a blue collar town, and we got a ton. I mean, if not thousands of working class residents with those vehicles in front of their house that can't fit in the driveway, so they park it on the street. So
We'll take direction from council if there are any desires to tweak the language or make it less restrictive. We'll take your direction.
Councilmember Aguilar.
Thank you, Mayor. Can we turn on the AC, please? It's getting really hot up here for a sec. So my question is with regards to the mobile home parks, I mean, the trailer, the RVs, are we partnering with the county with regards to safe parking spaces for RVs?
I'm going to have Director Lobaton come up
Thank you.
to address that.
Good evening. So the question was if we're partnering with Alameda County to advocate for spaces at trailer parks.
Trailer parks or safe parking space?
Thank you. So currently across Alameda County as a whole, there are no RV safe parking options. The only RV safe parking options within Alameda County are specifically 4 cities, and they include Oakland and Fremont, I believe. The Alameda County Safe Parking Program is for vehicles only. So while our providers are able to refer individuals residing in their vehicles to Alameda County Safe Parking, there's nowhere to refer individuals or households residing in RVs or other oversized vehicles within Alameda County.
Thank you. So you indicated that there are no partnerships even with the city. So if somebody is parking an RV. My concern is, there are bad actors. I've witnessed mobile home park or RV folks own RVs parked, engaging in activity, dumping their feces on the side of the road, from their RV. Some of them working on vehicles in front of their RV. They have, a couple cars are doing work. So I just wanted to make sure that we're addressing those concerns of the bad actors, but also aiding to make sure that, those who are actually living in their RVs that need spaces, that we work with them to guide them to services. And that's, is that something that we're able to do while we ticket and send human services to help guide those folks in that direction?
Human Services does partner with the police department and with Public Works in a collaborative effort to provide services as well as enforce some of the other behaviors that you've discussed. As was shared via public comment, the wait list for services is quite long. And so even if people are waiting for services, it may take months to sometimes years to get into shelter or housing. And particularly if somebody has an RV that they're living in and then they can't necessarily take that with them to a shelter or a housing option. But yes, the city does work to both provide services as well as enforcing any negative behavior.
Gotcha. Understood. Thank you. Those are my questions, and thank you for turning on the AC.
Councilmember Simon, coming to you.
Thank you. My question's on the RV parking. And just so I understand, one of my colleagues I heard reference the priority workshop that we had, and it didn't take priority, finding a safe parking for RVs. However, has there been any research in the city for potential safe RV parking sites?
So I'm going to come, either you can take that. I was going to come to city manager, assistant city manager, but you can kind of just take it quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Simon, so yes, staff did take a look and first explored whether there were any vacant city properties that could accommodate such a program. There were not. Staff also started exploring, based on direction from the Rules Committee, faith-based partnerships and advocacy with the county for them to spearhead such a program. So we currently are still working on that, but it's been a challenging process.
Okay. So as far as further work on that, are you on hold on that, or are you on hold on that because of no council direction, or what is the status of progressing with that?
So the direction has been to explore partnerships, mostly with faith-based organizations, as well as working with the county to see if there's a willingness and the ability to identify a site that would accommodate such a program. That's currently the status of that particular initiative right now, is we still are in that exploration phase.
Does the exploration include private property within San Leandro that's not faith-based?
Certainly, we have taken a look at that. Of course, when it comes to that, it takes two to tango, right? The city needs cooperation of that private property owner. So that would be the hurdle when it comes to privately owned parcels that are large enough to accommodate such a program.
Okay, yeah, I am concerned about, I mean, I definitely understand both sides. One side is you have RVs that aren't following rules and illegally discharging onto the sidewalk. I understand that. We want safety, we want cleanliness. I understand. The other side is a lot of people do live in them, and where are they going to go next? To the next street, and the police will be on them. And then the next street, and the police will be on them. So are we actually solving the problem, or are we just pushing the problem? And I'm concerned we're just pushing the problem. I would like to solve the problem. That's why I'm asking so many questions on the RV safe parking, and I hope we could push that. I don't know what it will take to push. If that's more council direction, I'm not really clear there. What does it take to push the RV parking, safe parking?
So at Rules Committee, right, I'm the chair of Rules, we specifically said, keep digging in. I think that's what he has stated. So we have said, keep exploring. So they're working on it.
All right, as far as schedules, timelines, do we have any schedules or timelines set for completion of digging?
Yeah, so it is a work plan item for next week.
And next question is just typing in on our city website, there's a overnight parking prohibited 6-1-430. It says there's no parking between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. for overnight parking. How does that relate or fall into this new ordinance?
Just 1 second. We will. That's in the municipal code that you were looking at? Yep. So
Under the parking citations section.
So the existing regulations restrict oversized vehicle parking in residential locations in the night. And so the proposed code changes for council's consideration would be a citywide restriction that would be a limit on parking of oversized vehicles.
Thank you for the clarification.
Vice Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Manager Lee, can you share a little bit? I know you mentioned that the information was on the website and your contact information as well as others. Can you share a little bit about the process for outreach for this particular, like these particular amendments, and in general, when we make other amendments or other projects, what the outreach looks like to the community?
I think outreach will vary depending on what type of project it is, what it requires. In this case, with this multi-topic zoning amendment package, we assembled a web page with information about the amendments and posted as much information as we could on the web page. And we did specifically for the tobacco retailing. The tobacco retailing amendments, we did provide notice to all of the existing tobacco retailers in the city and notified that the website was available and had information on it, and there was contact information provided as well.
Okay, your comment, your opposition. Got it.
Okay, thank you. Can you share a little bit then related to education outreach. And I will say that I don't think that, unfortunately, oftentimes it does happen that when something does come up that I, even as a council member and the public for different reasons, will make the connection between how a specific thing impacts us. And so I think that that's why it's really important to have a first reading and a second reading and that engagement. So with that, what does education outreach look like when an amendment is passed? Like, what is the plan for changes and how we ensure that people in the community will know that these changes, any changes that we decide on have happened? And then is there going to be a grace period for enforcement in some capacity for any number of these amendments?
Waylon, I can take this. So there's a delay between the first meeting and when the ordinances take effect. So that provides great opportunity for continued outreach. With the tobacco changes, they affect new retailers coming in. As Planning Manager Lee has clarified, the zoning code as a whole allows for the continuation of legally established uses. That's not specific to tobacco retailers. That is just a rule for all businesses in town, always. So when we look to adopt new changes to the zoning code, it's for people who we don't know yet might be interested in coming to the city to establish a new business that sells tobacco. And so we will be sure that our website, our handouts, our business license process is updated to reflect the latest council policy. We did do our best to notify existing retailers because we know that they're subject matter experts and would be interested. And we do apologize that the Planning Commission meeting was held on a holiday. That was the first time I heard of that tonight. And our team does apologize and will do better to look into different holidays to ensure that we're scheduling meetings at appropriate times. For the other topics, like the vehicle regulations that are before you tonight, you may have seen when the state law changed to restrict parking within 20 feet of a corner. Our city public information team did a really good job advertising and explaining and putting together information through different channels. Additionally, we would have citywide entry signs posted. In order to enforce the rules, it would need to be apparent to somebody entering San Leandro that there is this restriction, because the plan is not to post, if adopted, a 2-hour limit sign on every single street in the city. It would be at major entrances. So that's another way that people would find out about the laws if they're adopted.
Thank you. And then in the presentation, this has been ongoing since 2024, but it says that the tobacco moratorium is through June 2026.
Yes.
Okay. So, and then with changes in the zoning code for this, does that moratorium get lifted, or is that still through June 2026?
So we would recommend, if the council adopts the zoning changes that were the subject of the moratorium. So right now, if the moratorium lasts for another year, no new businesses can be established. So our team, a year prior to the moratorium deadline, was ready to bring the code changes. And if they're adopted, we would recommend lifting the moratorium because the loophole will be closed. The loophole that has created the unpermitted smoke shops in town. After the moratorium was adopted last year, you've seen a major enforcement effort to close the illegal smoke shops. And now that the enforcement's complete and the code updates have been prepared, there would no longer be a need for the moratorium.
Okay, I have a few questions, but I'll loop back around because I know Councilmember Veras Walton is up next.
So we're going to come to Councilmember Veras Walton.
Thank you. I'll start off with tobacco. So it's my understanding, and it's also reflected in the presentation, that there was some challenges on some businesses that either moved or opened a new location, and they started off one way and then they changed, like they kind of added a bunch of other types of merchandise. But really their main business was still selling tobacco. So and it's listed here as one of the challenges and one of kind of the impetus for really cleaning it up. Can you tell me a little bit about what would happen to those businesses where they applied for a license, their business changed, but they're still operating under that old license? What would happen to those businesses under this new with this new proposed language?
Would you mind rephrasing? I don't know if I understand.
Okay, so based on the presentation and my experience and just talking to folks is that there are some businesses that opened up a business that I guess I'm struggling to find out what exact license they applied with because I don't want to cite a specific case.
We could just give an example. If somebody opens a gift shop and they say that they're going to sell T-shirts and sneakers,
right?
And the planning team signs off the business license, general retail, totally fine. Then we find out that they're actually 70% tobacco with like 3 T-shirts.
Right.
So with the moratorium in place, they actually can't sell tobacco if they didn't get proper approvals. The moratorium does not allow the establishment of new tobacco stores. And so with the code changes, the only legal route to selling tobacco would be to go through this process outlined in the code, be one of the business types and have accessory tobacco sales. Other situations happened where people came in and they did admit they wanted to sell tobacco. And they said they even signed affidavits saying, I will keep it to a very small percentage of my business in compliance with the current laws. And in those cases, if somebody grew beyond, the remedy would be to bring them back under the threshold that existed when they established legally. So the remedy is going to be a little different depending on the timing and what the laws were in place at the time of establishment and how forthright people were in seeking their business licenses. So we actually have a very complex enforcement process right now with planning, PD, and community preservation because there's so many different circumstances with tobacco retailers.
Okay. I'll transition over to oversized vehicles. Can you chat a little bit about where the hotspots were or where we're seeing, because I'm assuming that this is in response to requests for cleanup and enforcement. Can you tell a little bit about what were those challenges and where were the hotspots located? Are they on the west side of town, south?
Yes. So on the west side of town, the industrial business parks that are the most tucked away without a lot of visibility have been the hardest hit over the last 5 years. And a lot of those businesses have appealed to the city council and come to these meetings, talking about the challenges that they faced with longstanding RV encampments in the public streets with lighting and nuisance conditions that ensued. And as mentioned today, we've also received a lot of complaints about increased crime that the business owners felt was related to the RV encampments. So, basically you see some on Doolittle and then on the west of Doolittle, Griffith and Burroughs Factor near the Coca-Cola bottling plant. I would say those are the biggest hotspots that staff has been receiving complaints about. And I don't know if it's helpful, but just to elaborate on some of the complaints we've heard, it does have to do also with employee safety and access to the sidewalks. A lot of times the sidewalks are blocked and employees are then walking in the street, which then they have concerns about, traffic conflicts. And also, as mentioned, having visitors and having parking for visitors was a concern, as well as the vehicles blocking sight lines being blocked by the oversized vehicles.
Okay, I will just throw out this question. You don't have to answer it, but in case it intersects with one of my colleagues' questions or comments. Just my concern around, my colleagues have brought up the concern around not having a safe place for folks to park, which means that they kind of move around the city. So it's not really solving the problem, but just moving the problem all over the place. Just wondering if we see any repeat offenders, like repeat people that are doing the nuisance stuff, not just like living in their vehicles and doing that. So
my understanding from hearing from colleagues in police and public works is yes. And to your point, moving around from location to location.
Councilmember Azevedo, please.
Yes. What is the current municipal code for RVs now throughout the city? We mentioned the residential areas where it's that they can't be there for a certain amount of time, but what about in throughout the city? Because at the marina area, we see a lot of RVs parked there sometimes, and it says that they can't stay overnight, but we still see a lot over there.
Yeah, my understanding is that the residential areas and the marina are the two locations in town that have the overnight parking restriction for oversized vehicles. And that the other locations in town, all of our commercial, industrial, business areas, are just subject to the standard 72-hour parking that applies to any vehicle. And this would address that.
Okay. And okay, well, I would like to move these code amendment packages, but with the exception of the tobacco one and the RV one, because I feel like the community and the businesses didn't have a chance to be able to go to the meeting because they had a holiday. And I believe that they should have a chance to participate in the meeting and a public comment. So I'd like to move the items with the exception of those two.
Councilmember Simon, please.
I'd like to second it, and I do have a question. My question is, just to clarify, the tobacco grandfather, I'll use that term, if an existing owner has a tobacco retail license, they're ready to retire, they want to sell their, I'll just say a 7-Eleven, can that new owner buying that new 7-Eleven take over selling tobacco and take over that license?
Yes, the new buyer could sell tobacco at that location. They would be eligible to apply for a TRL to sell there. Yes.
Okay, what does that mean, eligible to apply? What could prevent them from getting that approval to sell?
That's the last outburst.
Well, they would be required to comply with all the regulations that are in the tobacco retailing ordinance. So it'd be certification that they comply with the city regulations.
Okay, it's just agreeing that they will comply with regulations?
Yes.
I think the nuance to add is that a business license can be transferred to new ownership. A tobacco retail license isn't transferable. Each operator needs to obtain their own license for that verification to happen, right? So I think that's the distinction, is that we just don't want to misstate it and say, yes, it can all transfer, when technically a new TRL would need to be applied for and issued. And nothing in these changes would preclude a new buyer from getting a tobacco retail license if they purchase a business from an existing location.
Okay, yeah, my question or concern was, are there other issues that can be brought up to prevent them from obtaining that license? Like, do you look at their history of operating in another location? But you're saying it's just they will follow our criteria. Is that the only requirement?
To my knowledge, I'm looking back at our Assistant Chief Torres, because the police department administers tobacco retail licenses. I don't want to speak out of turn.
So my understanding of the new regulation is that there's no change to what currently happens now.
Okay. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my council colleagues for asking some of the questions that they did. It makes it easier for me on my list. For the RV parking, I heard earlier staff mentioned if we change if we made an amendment, we would also, there's currently no enforcement of that unless we also make a change to our code enforcement.
Regarding the RV parking?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
The police department enforces vehicles, and today they can enforce 72-hour parking rules.
Okay.
If the council desires enforcement of a shorter time frame than 72 hours, this code is designed to do that, and it would still be enforced by the police department and our standard parking enforcement.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification. I misheard. And then I also wanted to just say in general we've had a lot of conversations around the RV parking, and we had a meeting on February 26th. So for anybody at home or in the audience who are who want to become more engaged about it, it is going to be coming back, as the mayor mentioned, as part of the work plan. But I wanted to ask Human Services Director a question. Part of the presentation around that, we had talked in depth about a request. Part of the presentation was a request for interest for providers of an RV safe parking micropilot, and we talked a little bit about some of the challenges we have. I was wondering if you could share a little bit. I don't know if this is outside of the purview of what we're talking about, but some of the challenges to it as we're going forward with the continued work of trying to find an option or some alternative for the RVs.
Sure. So as part of the Rules Committee presentation, we shared that I believe it was in November of 2023, staff had put out a request for interest for nonprofit providers to provide services for an RV outreach program. We did receive one provider who was interested in this program. And I believe we sent it to at least 4 targeted providers and then shared it with our broader service provider network. And so what some of our providers have been sharing with us is that they're stretched thin, they're at capacity, they don't have the bandwidth to take on new projects. We've also spoken to providers who operate similar programs in other cities and did share that one of the challenges with working with this particular population is that having an RV can be a barrier to actually moving into shelter or housing, because these individuals or households may not want to get rid of their vehicle and then they can't move into the shelter or housing. And so there are some challenges with that. The provider also shared that some people may permanently want to reside in their RVs. They might not be interested in moving into shelter or housing. So that's based on the experience of one provider that they shared with us.
Thank you so much. And then the last thing I just wanted to add was just a comment. I know that staff had mentioned there's collaboration between the different departments, and I really appreciate that. And I hope that as we're working with any of these changes, that we're working across the different departments to be able to do outreach as well as education, and then obviously provide resources. And so I just want to uplift that. I know you're already doing that work, but to make sure that you continue to do that, because I think that that's going to be helpful for both people understanding what's happening, as well as people being able to follow our changes, as well as making sure that we're not solving for something else and creating other problems. So thank you so much for that.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to ask a few questions. Chief, Assistant Chief, if you could come down real quick. So I just want to make sure that our record is really clear. The concern has been raised, Assistant City Manager, that if someone wants to retire and sell their business, could they sell that business at full value? If the applicant to purchase the business is a reputable organization or individual that would be approved by the police department, would that license essentially be approved?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that in that regards, it's no change to the existing process.
Okay. Chief, have you been informed of any changes to what you're expected to do in the approval of a new tobacco licensee?
No. The
Okay.
same process as we're currently.
Same process. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about RV safe parking and the like. So we've heard lots of discussions about the work that's being done, the efforts that are being pursued, private property, public property, and the like. But I want to talk about the enforcement currently. So currently, RVs are prohibited from being on city streets for more than 72 hours in a specific location. And we clearly have both discretion around enforcement, and then we face practical constraints around enforcement. So Chief, I'm going to ask you, are there RVs that are currently parked on San Leandro streets that have been there for more than 72 hours?
Yes.
And in terms of policy guidance, and this is for Assistant City Manager, in terms of policy guidance, has council indicated to you, the city manager, that we need to move all RVs in order to comply with that 72-hour limit?
No, I have not received that direction.
Okay. So I am, just for now, I'm going to move into comment. So thank you for your time. I have no problem postponing, but we're just talking, someone literally said, let's kick the can down the road. My question is why? What is it that's going to be different in the new regulation? And so I think that I'm willing to have that discussion, but to be clear, the purpose of the regulation is to limit the sale of tobacco because we were having shops that were completely out of control. Were causing serious problems in the environment. And what I heard from someone that I think was speaking broadly said, people generally do want to control the number of shops. So it's not a question about controlling the number of shops. I am particularly sensitive to the fact that folks might have been on holiday for religious or cultural reasons and didn't have the opportunity to speak. So that fundamentally bothers me. And just out of cultural sensitivity, I have no problem saying, let's delay. But what I do not want, me personally, I don't want to be having this discussion next year in March. I think this is an easily resolvable discussion that we can resolve in the next 30 days and take care of this ordinance very quickly because all the work has been done. The concerns have been expressed historically, and this is just the outcome of us trying to address a challenge that we have. So I'm really grateful for all the work that staff has done. With respect to the RV parking and my concerns there, I think that what I have heard from council members and from community members, it's not just the absolute notion that we want to, quote unquote, move people along, but rather that there are certain particular circumstances where we feel like there is no interest in working with the city in a constructive approach and a constructive resolution to some of the challenges that businesses or other residents are experiencing. And so knowing that we've got discretion and knowing that we've got capacity constraints on all the resources that we have, the truth of the matter is we're not going to be able to enforce 100% of the time the proposed regulation. But does it give us the opportunity to make to apply some encouragement to some individuals who are not cooperative, who are not working with the city for a win-win? I think the answer is yes. I'm proud of the efforts that Ms. Lobadan, Director Lobadan, has undertaken to keep searching for safe RV parking. And so I do believe that staff is working. That's been the direction, and staff is executing against that. So with that being said, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, let's vote.
All votes are in. The item passes unanimously.
At this point in time, we're going to take very quickly our next item. This is an item that we have discussed on 3 separate occasions at City Council. So I'm going to look down Council row and say, is there any objection to us waiving this presentation? Seeing no objection to waiving the presentation, we're going to go straight at 9:01 into opening the public hearing on the Eden Road action item, or hearing, public hearing that we have right here. So do we have public commenters for our public hearing?
Mayor, we have not received any comment cards for this item, and there are no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, so at 9:02, I am closing the public hearing. At this point in time, I'm going to come back to council and say, is there any further discussion or deliberation on this item? If not, I will entertain a motion. Councilmember Aguilar.
So moved.
So I've got a motion by Councilmember Aguilar, and I will second the motion. And let us please vote.
All votes are in. That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, so at this point in time, what I'd like to do is take a short, and by short, I mean 5 minutes. Short 5 minutes. So at 9:08, we will reconvene. So we are in recess for 5 minutes. Okay, so it is 9:08 and we are reconvening. So at this point in time, what we're going to do is we're going to postpone item number 9 to either a work session or a subsequent meeting out of respect for all the people that have come. So what we'd like to do at this point in time is move to item 10B. 10B. And again, just with a focus on respect for those that have been here, what I'd like to be able to do is take public comment on the item because the presentation has been public, right? It's been published. You've all seen the PowerPoint. You know what you want to come and talk about. So what I'd like to do is take public comment on this item first. Have any concerns? Seeing no concern from my council members, again, for members of the public that are online, we're going to take public comment first on our discussion of the capital improvement program, the 10-year plan for 2026 through 2035, where those are fiscal years respectively. So at this point in time, Madam Clerk, do we have comment cards?
Mr. Mayor, we have received comment cards. We have 10 comment cards presently, and there are 2 hands raised online.
Okay, we will begin in person.
The first speakers are Ki Wu, followed by Helen Cataldo, followed by Ann Cawood.
Yes, hi. My name is Ki Wu. I live on View Drive. I wanted to first begin by thanking the city for instituting, implementing the traffic calming measures on View Drive and Astor Drive. They've been helpful to some degree, especially the yellow striping down the middle of the road, which has helped to keep people on their proper side of the road instead of driving down the middle of the road historically. However, the speeding has not been addressed. I know that we've put speed signs for 25 miles per hour on the street, as well as some striping to, I guess, trick people into thinking that the road is narrowing to slow people down. Unfortunately, that has not helped. The speed limit signs were placed on the level portion of View Drive, not on the incline portion. Unfortunately, that is where most of the speeding is occurring. So I've spoken on this before. I feel a little bit like a broken record. This is View Drive and Astor Drive are residential streets. They're not intended as a thoroughfare. We have an increased level of traffic on the street, not just from residential cars, but also from commercial vehicles. So it's extremely dangerous and extremely busy all the time. We wouldn't be having this discussion, obviously, if Lake Chabot Road were reopened. That's really the whole point of us being here. So I'm just wanted to let you know that. Thank you again for your traffic calming measures. However, we still have issues on the street. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Helen Cataldo, followed by Ann Cawood.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Helen Cataldo. I lived on View Drive for almost 50 years. I would like to start by thanking you very much for the measures that this certainly has made people street. And drivers are no longer driving in the middle of the road as they used to. That is good. However, the speeding continues. I don't wish to be a complainer, but again, I would like to emphasize that View Drive was not built to be used as a commuter through road, but rather a neighborhood road where families live and children play, dogs run. And garbage bins are placed on the side of what, during commute hours, now appears to be a busy highway. The speeding has not stopped and the danger still lurks. The road will deteriorate more rapidly. The chance of an accident is very high, with many garages having difficult or blind access into the street. The only real answer is to reopen Lake Chabot Road completely to two-way traffic. Now an even greater danger is present. the constant fear that fire can strike at a moment's notice. We are in a high fire risk area. We sincerely appreciate the fact that you had fire engines and ambulance parked on Scenic View Drive on July 4th in case of a fire. Also noted was that Bay Vista residents did not use illegal fireworks, as a lot of surrounding neighbors in Oakland and elsewhere were doing. It is time to open Lake Chabot Road so that we have all potential evacuation routes available. We would be so grateful if you could complete the geotechnical survey and get accurate cost estimates so that the city can apply for the
The next speaker is Ann Cowwood, followed by Tonda Smith.
Good evening. As many of you know, the Bay Vista community has been working diligently to prepare our residents for wildfire evacuations and also seek funding to pay for the repairs of Lake Chabot Road. On May 22nd, we met with the Alameda County Public Works Director and several Alameda County Transportation Commission members to ask that they expand their focus for grant applications for their $100 million fund to include fire evacuation routes and resilient infrastructure. They have been receptive to this request. Their next round of funding and grant applications is October 2026. We were informed that project details, including a geotechnical report and supporting construction costs, will be required to apply for these grants. More importantly, the project must also be a high priority for the city of San Leandro. There have been 3 very close vegetation fires in recent weeks. One on Fairmont Ridge, one in Lake Chabot Park, and the most recent this past Saturday at Bishop O'Dowd that jumped the 580 freeway to the Oakland Zoo. We know from reports of the October 2024 Keller fire that it took residents of 235 homes 1 hour to move 1 mile. Bay Vista is almost 1,000 homes with over 3,500 residents. You already know from prior studies that Vista Grand and Benedict Drives will be severely over capacity in the event of an evacuation. The only way out for many residents will be Lake Chabot Road. We respectfully ask that the City Council prioritize public safety with the repair of Lake Chabot Road and direct staff to diligently seek out outside funding as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Tondi Smith, followed by Callan Luca.
Thank you. My comments tonight will be on the soft side of this issue, and I totally support all the hard facts from my neighbors. Lately, I've heard some of my neighbors talking about moving out of the neighborhood because they are concerned about the fear of being trapped in the event of a fire. And I must admit that that idea resonates with me because just 2 years ago, I was also thinking of moving out of the area. And the thing that I thought about was, where else am I going to go and get this kind of community involvement and cohesiveness? It is really unusual to have people function in support of one another like this, I think, in a neighborhood. I probably know the names of 40 people in my neighborhood. I know where they live. I know their dogs. It is a community. So with Lake Chabot closed for 2.5 years, some of my neighbors are frustrated with the diverted drivers driving recklessly and speeding down their street, making it dangerous for them to leave their driveways. On my street, the traffic is not a problem, but I care about my neighbors on View and on Graff and on Astor. That's one reason I'm here. The other reason I'm here is because I'm also here to support safe evacuations from the backside of the hill, so that in the event of a fire, the neighbors further down the hill will have no choice but to clog Vista Grand and Benedict, leaving me and the other infirmed and senior citizens that live on the backside of the hill forced to just inch down with the fire at our backside. In this day and time when everybody is so concerned about themselves and their own needs, it really means a lot to me that this neighborhood is concerned about each other. And I think it's amazing to live in an area like that. So council, staff, please publicly and officially make it a priority to get the geotechnical report and intent.
Thank you. Your time is up. The next speaker is, I believe, Catherine Luca, followed by Sandra Loggins, followed by Kathy Greenstein.
Mike's not on.
I think you probably heard what I had to say, though. I just agree with all of my friends. I recently went to a fire prevention meeting, which a lot of us in our community are really trying to talk our neighbors into evacuation bags and figuring out how they're going to be getting out. And I downloaded this app called Watch Duty, and it alerts you about fires that are happening. And I was pretty alarmed when I heard about fires that were happening just recently in the last 2 weeks, very close. The most current one was the one that jumped 580 freeway and went up to the Nolan Park Zoo. They did have to evacuate the public out of the zoo at that time, and they closed the freeway. So this happened on the Keller fire too. And so that brought me, boy, if our freeway was closed for our exit from Vista Grand and Benedict, we'd have to have other routes. And that's why I really think we need to open up Lake Chabot. I do want to commend, though, Alameda County Fire Department and CAL FIRE for responding to so many of the fires that we've had in the last 2 weeks. Most of them have been very quickly, and I feel very safe knowing that we have very competent people that are fighting these fires and know what they're doing. But, you know, they're coming more and more frequently now that we're in this high fire danger. Also, while I'm here, I just want to tell you guys, we had a problem with an old cemetery up in the hills there. And the St. Leanders has come through and cut down some of the more high danger eucalyptus trees that face a lot of our property. We were fearful that the trees might fall on our property. And then also during fire danger, they are very flammable. And so they made a very good effort, and we really are thankful for that. And we hope their efforts continue because this is a very overgrown area that's kind of been abandoned. And so I just wanted to publicly thank St. Leanders Church. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speakers are Sandra Loggins, followed by Kathy Greenstein, followed by Marianne Miller.
Hi, good evening. To save everybody time, you've heard me speak before. It's about reopening Lake Chabot Road and why it's important for both our community. It's also about, just a city's ability to maintain its infrastructure and make sure that that infrastructure not just works for this small community, but for the communities that it connects to. Lake Chabot Road is also access for Castro Valley. So this isn't just a Bay Vista resident problem. It's a problem for our community at large. I've said this before, but I want to reiterate, when we talk about evacuating people from the Bay Vista area, you look at the 9,000 people who live in the Bay Vista area, we often forget to talk about the hospital that sits right next to us. It's an 80-bed facility. Benedict is their only access point, and it would be fighting against the other 1,000 people, 50% who are all old, who are trying to get out on one road at one time. And it's for that reason that we come to you, and we are grateful for this opportunity and ask for your support in making repairing and reopening Lake Chabot Road a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speakers are Kathy Greenstein, Marianne Miller, Linda Watkins.
Hello, my name's Kathy Greenstein. We moved to San Leandro in the fall of 2021. We share a home in Bay Vista with my almost 95-year-old mother. We are spry seniors, but we cannot be expected to get out of our cars and run. What we have found in our 4 years living in Bay Vista is a neighborhood rich in caring and human connection. The grassroots effort to reopen Lake Chabot Road reflects the kind of caring that is rare in our society today. We know our neighbors and care about their safety and well-being. We have a responsibility to each other. It's impossible to predict from what direction a fast-moving wildfire might come. Lake Chabot Road may very well be the most viable evacuation route for many. Additionally, and I know you've heard this repeatedly, Astor and View Drive residents have borne the burden of heavy detour traffic for too long. In the spirit of caring and public safety, I respectfully ask the City of San Leandro to repair and restore the vital artery that is Lake Chabot Road. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speakers are Marianne Miller, Linda Watkins, Kat Wellman.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Marianne Miller, former city planner, here tonight with your top 3 reasons why it's very important for you to allocate funds to reopen Lake Chabot Road. Number 1, reopening the road will bring the city back into conformance with the 2035 San Leandro General Plan. Keeping the road closed means the city continues to be out of compliance with that plan because the road closure has created a de facto reclassification of the city's street network. And that network was not it was not analyzed in the general plan EIR that accompanied the general plan. And so you're actually out of compliance with CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act. Subsequently, because of the road closure, there's been no environmental analysis of how noise impacts have occurred, how air quality has been impacted. There have been no professional traffic studies done to measure the impact of increased traffic volumes and speeds up and down steep grades in our residential neighborhood. And I also want to bring your attention to the municipal code because there are sections of that code that specifically address erosion of roadways and the importance of maintaining roadways in chapters 13 and 15 of the San Leandro Municipal Code. So reopening the road is going to bring you back into conformance with your general plan EIR, and your municipal code. Please follow your governing documents, your municipal code, general plan, and general plan EIR, and do the right thing to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the 3,500 residents in Bayo Vista, and vote to allocate funds to take the necessary steps to get outside funding. As you've heard, there is funding available. The city just needs to apply for it. Please reopen the road. Thank you.
The next speakers are Linda Watkins, Kat Wellman, and Robin Thompson Webb.
Unless when Linda Watkins is online, she had to leave. Is she online? I don't know. Okay. Good evening. I'm Kat Wellman, and I can't tell you how proud I am to say that I am president of Bovia. As you can see, we have absolutely wonderful residents living in our community. Lake Chabot Road is listed in the city's capital improvement plan as a recommended but unfunded project. What is disconcerting is that it is listed only as stabilization work, not as full repair that would reopen the road to two-way traffic. In fact, even the partial fix remains unfunded. Obviously, the city needs outside funding to fix the road. We've done the groundwork. We met with ACTC representatives, including Supervisors Nate Miley and Lena Tam, along with Mayor Gonzalez, and received positive indications that ACTC funding could be available to fix the road. But that support depends on clear, committed action from this city council. There are 3 steps that you need to take in order to get there. 1, you have to commit to reopening Lake Chabot Road to two-way traffic. The city council has never been given the opportunity to make that decision. However, no outside agency or grant funding will fund repairs if the city hasn't committed to reopening the road. Please make this a formal CIP priority. 2, authorize new geotechnical reports and get updated cost estimates. The city can't ask for funding if it doesn't have this supporting documentation. You need to be able to show the true condition of the road and how much it will cost to fix it. Please direct staff to collaborate with the county. They fixed a worse slide than we have on slide A for only $700,000. Let's see if we can't do something similar. And then finally, please work with county leaders to secure ACTC funding. Supervisor Tam and ACTC leadership.
Thank you. Your time is up. Our next speakers are Robin Thompson Webb and Catherine Ralph.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. I had 5 areas, but I'm going to go to the bottom first. Open Lake Chabot Road. It is very dangerous. I live on Astor Drive. Most days, because of the curves and the blind spots, when I come out of my driveway, there's a car behind me, and sometimes there's one in front of me, and it is just dangerous. I went down the hill a couple of days ago, and I talked to this other resident that lives on View Drive. Someone came down the hill, hit his truck, and the truck hit the bricks on his land. This kind of danger is really impacting all of us. I want to also speak to the paint job. The paint job has no impact at all on Astor Drive. People are speeding up, speeding down, and frankly, we're very afraid for our families going in and out of the driveway. About 2 weeks ago, my neighbor was coming out of his driveway. He had his son in the car. I was in my house and I heard screech. And there was somebody who was less than 2 feet away from him. And then instead of stopping, they went around him. We need Lake Chabot Road open. Please work on a plan to get the work done. Thank you.
The last comment card in person is from Catherine Ralph.
Hello, Council. Thank you for your attention tonight and for all the work that's been done on trying to help our neighborhood be safer. And then I just wanted to also back up everything that my other neighbors have said, but to add that I've heard sometimes in our discussions about reopening Lake Chabot Road, some pitting of parts of San Leandro against other parts of San Leandro. And I want to just reinforce that as well-founded as we feel as neighbors for each other in the little enclave that we live in, there's also a commitment to the entire city of San Leandro, and we've come before you and acknowledged your role in maintaining the entire city, not just Lake Chabot Road, but please Lake Chabot Road as part of that, because we also feel like the canal and other things that are falling apart in this city need your attention as well. We understand that, and we have no desire to have one part of the city thinking that we're only looking out for ourselves. We also know that if a fire hits our area, it's not stopping there. It's jumping the freeway. It's heading through Estudio Estates and on down as it did at Coffee Park in Santa Rosa. So the freeway isn't a barrier anymore, and neighborhoods are not safe from one another. We have to participate as a community. So I want to thank you for considering that we're all looking out for each other in this endeavor. So thank you.
Mayor, that concludes our in-person public comment.
Okay, so I'm going to give a quick scan of the audience. Anybody else want to speak? Because I'm going to close it and I'm not coming back. Also, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so in-person public comment is closed. We're going to go and open online public comment.
The first speaker is Rabbi Ruth Adar, followed by Linda Watkins.
Am I on?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
I want to affirm all that my neighbors have had to say about this issue, and I appreciate having such caring neighbors and such capable ones. I'm retired. I'm disabled. I live up on Marine View Drive, and I have vivid memories of the Oakland Hills fire. Several friends of mine were burned out. One had to drive her car through a wall of fire with her children in the back seat to get out of there. I really believe that we need to deal with the issue of evacuation from this neighborhood sooner rather than later, because we don't want to wait until there's a tragedy to deal with this issue. Hindsight's always 20/20, but there really truly are lives at stake. Everything else, people have already said plenty. I'll stop here, but I thank you for your attention, and I encourage you to think about this very seriously.
Thank you. The next speaker is Linda Watkins, followed by Payal Vora. Linda, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. I live on View Drive. And first of all, I will say I appreciate the traffic calming measures with the lines drawn on the road. One thing it's also reinforced to me is how View Drive and Astor Drive are not equipped to handle the type of traffic that is being diverted to them from Lake Chabot Road. The first commenter tonight, I actually have had the exact same experience he has had, meaning I just got a new car. It has auto braking feature and it keeps auto braking on View Drive. It does not do that on any other road I've driven on. So it just kind of reinforces that View Drive, with cars parked on both sides, it's very narrow in the center with large trucks and big vehicles coming down that get diverted from Lake Chabot Road. The residential street just isn't equipped to handle that. So my concern is that I don't see a sense of urgency from the city to get the road repaired. And it's my request and ask that this be taken very seriously for all the reasons that my neighbors have cited as well, that we look to repair and reopen Lake Chabot Road as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Payal Vora, followed by Douglas Spalding. And Payal, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for taking our comments. I will once again reiterate, as I have at previous meetings, the sense of urgency that the city must adopt to reopen Lake Chabot Road to two-way traffic. The Fairmont fire that just happened recently was a major concern for us. It was too close to home. And the first thing that came to all of our minds on Astor Drive and the nearby View Drive, Astor Court as well, was where should we rush to if everybody is rushing down the hill? And having a major road like Lake Chabot Road reopened to two-way traffic is absolutely imperative in situations like that. So I second everything that everybody before me has said. And I also want to re-emphasize the need, the absolute need. It's not even an option anymore. We need to have that open. I know that we have funds and we have avenues to get more funds if needed, and we should do everything it takes. And so we would appreciate if the city would also spring into action regarding this item. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Douglas Spalding, followed by San Leandro Chamber of Commerce.
Well, hello. Here we are again debating Lake Chabot Road. And I am a contrary voice. I do not want the road reopened. I too am appreciative of the traffic calming measures that have been undertaken. I don't know if we studied to see how effective they are and what other traffic calming measures could be undertaken. I'm a Bay Vista resident and I live on Graph, and I don't think there are any traffic calming measures on my street. I'd appreciate if you add them there too. But it seems like, I think that's a real issue, is the traffic through the neighborhood and the safety concerns there. But I think that's something that can be solved without reopening Lake Chabot Road. The reopening of Lake Chabot Road in terms of, safety and escape from fire is contraindicated. Our very own fire chief has said she don't want it to happen. They want that road open in case there is a fire, that they can have access. And I've walked the road many times, especially during the winter, and the road is falling apart. And, being able to bolster it and keep it in place, I think is going to be much more expensive than anybody anticipates, tens of millions of dollars. So, if you really want it to maintain it as an emergency escape, don't drive on it now. Leave it to when there is an emergency and we need to use the roadway. But I have a sense that if there is a conflagration that we all have to escape from, it's probably coming from that direction, from the park. And so why would we send route people right into a wall of flames? It does not make sense to me. What does make sense is to continue the efforts that have been undertaken already to practice evacuation, for all of us to look at our yards and try to cut down flammable plants. I'm very thankful to the fire department for doing an excellent job suppressing.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Our next speaker is San Leandro Chamber of Commerce, followed by Tao Nen. Chamber, you're good to unmute yourself.
Hi there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, it's Emily Grego, President CEO of the San Leandro Chamber of Commerce. There's so much for us to comment on when it comes to policy here in the city. And I'm not here just to advocate on one issue, but to just advocate for our businesses and what they mean to the city, especially in times of a capital improvement project. Businesses help fund city budgets through sales and property and utility taxes. They provide over 60% of the city's budget to fund these projects. Infrastructure impacts their businesses. The roads, the lighting, the broadband, the transit, the clean public spaces, that all allows businesses to operate and grow. Cleanliness and safety, that definitely allows more investment. So when there's issues such as the illegal parking that we were talking about earlier, and homeless encampments and illegal dumping that happens, visitors don't want to come to San Leandro and deter business investment. Business owners see these impacts daily, but yet others still deny them. So in order for us to have progress, I feel like everybody needs to be listened to, just as our Lake Chabot advocates are here saying, let's listen to the entire city. Just one neighborhood affects other neighborhoods. Let's all listen to the public funding, to the public needs, and businesses are part of that. I know that while some want to just point businesses to being a one-track mind, that is not true. They really matter to the city in so many different ways, or I wouldn't be here speaking on so many different topics on behalf of them. So I just want everybody to understand that if our city is going to grow and we're going to sustain it and we're going to welcome new business and new folks coming here to live in some of the new apartment complexes and whatnot, we have to listen to the business voices and be respectful of them.
Thank you. Your time is up. The last speaker is Tao Nen, and you can unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening. My name is actually Taurai Ninguka. I just used the short one there. I live on Graph Avenue. In terms of safety, there is also deer and coyotes that cross Graph Avenue. There is sort of an easement for wildlife to go through by the power lines and go through a couple of the neighborhood houses here, going deep into the neighborhood. And so during the summer, as things dry up in the park, they start coming in here to eat up. So if the road is being used by a high level of traffic by people who are not familiar, that there is wildlife going through these streets, that also presents a danger. So maybe in some of these improvements that are being done, signage are to help some of those speeding drivers to understand that there will be wildlife going by in the neighborhood. The deer that cross here, I see them probably 2 or 3 times a week. They're pretty big. So people are going to have to brake and stop. And maybe later in the season, if it happens whenever the weather is not very clear, it can have disastrous consequences if people are speeding down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have one more raised hand from Greg Novak.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. I want to simply state that I support all of my Bay Vista neighbors who have said that they want the road to be reopened. If something breaks, you fix it. The road needs to be repaired and maintained. And a quick point of clarification, the fire department does actually, in fact, want the road to be reopened, but not until it's opened for two-way traffic. A lot of big numbers have been shared, but the facts are no one knows what it will cost to reopen and repair the road until we have a geotechnical study. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, that concludes the raised hands and the comment cards.
Okay, so I'll close public comment. On item 10B, we will now come back to a brief, effective, timely presentation from staff. I think we've got Mr. Irwin here, right? Yes, you are our presenter today. So Irwin Ching is our engineering manager and will lead us through a conversation here for about 10 minutes, and then we'll have the opportunity to ask questions and dig in a little bit. So I will ask council members to look at their watches, look at the clock on the wall, and make a decision very soon about how much time we want to be spending on this. So just be aware of the time. Mr. Ching, please proceed.
Good evening, Honorable City Mayor, City Council members, council staff, and the public. It's my pleasure to present this evening the 10-year Capital Improvement Program plan for fiscal years 26 through 35. Before I begin, I would like to note that this presentation has been revised from what was published on July 2nd. Slide number 6 of this presentation was inadvertently excluded from the earlier version. First, I would like to revisit the past actions that brought us to this point. During the June 9th Special City Council meeting, engineering presented the proposed CIP list for the biennial budget. The list was segmented into 4 lists to allow City Council members to recuse themselves as necessary. 3 of the segmented lists were approved that night, which includes the Hesperian Bike Lane Gap Closure Project, Mulford Library Project, and the Llewellyn Boulevard Class 4 Bikeways Project. The 4th CIP list, comprising of the remaining CIP projects, were also presented to City Council, but no action was taken. On June 16th, 2025, the public hearing for the city's biennial operating budget was held, and the budget was subsequently adopted. In the same meeting, Council approved the allocation of additional funds to award the construction contract for the new Mulford Library. This evening, the 10-year Capital Improvement Program plan, which includes the remaining CIP list, will be presented for approval and adoption. The Capital Improvement Program 10-year plan for fiscal year 26 through 35 contains the recommendations for projects to be funded as part of the biennial operating budget, as well as projections of projects that could be funded in the following 8 years. The following are the remaining projects recommended for funding in fiscal year 26 and 27, categorized per project type. A list of specific projects per project type was included in the packet at the end of the presentation for your reference. The total CIP budget, excluding the segmented list, is approximately 52 million. If the segmented list were included, the budget would be 56.6 million. The total grant funds out of this budget is about 5.8 million. And the largest investment goes to the water treatment plant projects, which are funded by the Enterprise Fund, followed by projects in the roadway network and storm drain categories. Bicycle and pedestrian projects come in fourth and are not too far behind. The following project lists are for projects recommended by staff but did not fit the current budget. This slide and the next lists all of these projects. The total estimated funding need for recommended projects without funding is about 18 million. To try and bridge the funding shortfall, staff will be on the lookout for grant funding opportunities for these projects. However, note that grant funding are not available for all project types. Since some projects cannot be funded by grant funds, staff on a quarterly basis will evaluate the impacts of proposed projects to the reserve funds. And if the reserve funds has a healthy balance, staff will come back to council to ask for authorization to allocate the reserve funds to these projects. Finally, this list consists of projects that are not recommended for funding because of one of the following reasons. Some of these projects have been on the shelf for a long time, and the scope of work and construction costs are no longer current, and the project will need to be reevaluated. Such a project is the Casa Peralta renovation. It also includes projects that were previously funded by the redevelopment agency, now dissolved, but still require additional funding to construct. These funds are restricted and cannot be allocated to other projects. In order to implement these projects, staff will be exploring a design that may be a smaller scale than previously conceptualized, that would fit the current available funding. This list also includes large projects that require a large funding source to construct, which is far beyond the typical funding source available to the city. Such is the Shoreline Park project. The total funding allocation to these projects amount to almost $12 million. 3.7 million of this amount are unrestricted funds, but the rest are restricted. To conclude, staff is recommending the approval of the 10-year capital improvement program plan for fiscal years 26 through 35, which includes the remaining CIP list to be funded by the biennial operating budget. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So let me begin by thanking you for being incredibly efficient. So thank you very much. Looking at our clock, council, I'm going to take a motion right now on a time for extension instead of waiting till exactly 10 o'clock. So we usually close automatically at 10 without a motion. Councilmember Riveros Walton.
I'd like to make a motion to extend to 10:30.
Second. Okay, so I've got a motion from Councilmember Riveros Walton, second from Councilmember Aguilar to extend to 10:30. Again, be mindful, council members, in your questions, because we want to make sure that everybody has a time to ask their questions. So here we go. Please vote.
All votes are in. The motion passes.
Okay, our meeting is extended until 10:30. At this point in time, I'd like to begin with both questions and comments. So just, you've got your 5 minutes to do whatever you want to with that time. Who would like to go first? No questions or comments? Okay, Councilmember Riveros Walton.
Thank you. Let me just pull up. I'm looking at the report, not at the presentation, so I'll be citing page numbers from that. I just wanted to ask a couple of clarifying questions, and I'm just going to kind of focus for the time being so I can let my colleagues take up on projects kind of in their districts, but I did want to focus on Lake Chabot Road. And I'm just going to some of these questions may have already been asked and answered, so I just wanted to make sure we get some clarification. Does the city need to have direction from the council to have it opened both ways to pursue any grant funding?
I believe
So I'm going to start with city manager, acting city manager on this question. So I just want to make sure that the question is clear. Do we need guidance to reopen it two ways, or is that guidance already in place?
Councilmember Veras Walton, staff's understanding is that direction is in place for us to find ways to repair the road if pursuant to funding. So that would entail that staff would need to go out and find that funding in order to fully repair that road.
Okay. So we don't need just to be absolutely clear, so we don't need to have any kind of additional resolution. Okay. I'm seeing ahead for the folks that are listening in. I'm seeing ahead, no, motioning no. So the current capital improvement project, the CIP list only includes repairs. Why was if it's not funded, right? The only part that's funded is to fix 2 slides. If you don't need council direction for it to be open both ways, why was, and the project is unfunded, why not include the whole repair cost? Because even if it's unfunded, it's proposed unfunded, why can't we just include the full 11 million to repair it both ways, as opposed to just the 3 point something million that was on the CIP report?
So Councilmember Veras Walton, my understanding, and I'll throw this to City Engineer Jason Imai for clarification. My understanding is the city does have funding. So to clarify, there are 4 slides or downward slopes that need repair. The city has funding for 2 and does not have funding for the remaining 2. My understanding is that the 3.7 is for 2 of the 4 slides, and I will defer to City Engineer Imai for clarification.
Good evening again, City Engineer Jason Imai, Public Works Department. That is correct. I will look also to our engineering manager here for a head nod too. Right. Yeah. So there is existing funding, including funding from FHWA to currently design and construct repairs for slides 1 and 4. Slide 1 is the one closest to the freeway on the downslope, and slide 4 is the uphill slope that's damaged the slope to the top above Lake Chabot Road. The funding that you see that's needed is to repair slides 2 and 3.
Right. And so the intent is to repair all the slides so that you're able to open it up both ways. I guess my concern is that this is essentially a policy document that sets direction and sets kind of staff for the next 10 years. And this only sets it up to repair 4 slides and not necessarily to repair the roadway. The slides are only step 1 of other steps to actually be able to open the road both ways. And so as a guiding policy document that we're voting on for the next 10 years, I'm concerned that it's not included, that the whole project is not included. We're essentially going to have to wait another 10 years to be able to get to step 3, which is repair the first 2 slides, find funding for the other 2 slides. And we're now 10 years later, barely, the road continues to deteriorate. So I'm continuing to be concerned about our direction here is to really only repair slides without clear direction in this document that our intent is to open it up both ways. So because the project is unfunded, the remaining parts are unfunded, I would like for it to include reopening Lake Chabot Road both ways, because I just want it to be memorialized in this document so that if we do find funding, it's actually reflected on a document that the council has voted on.
Is there a question or do you seek some commentary on that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Veras Walton. Just to be clear, this document before you this evening is only articulates the funding for 2 years. That may be the reason, and I will look to staff, they're nodding, that may be the reason why the entire project was not detailed out in the CIP document. We certainly can share that information as requested.
Okay, Councilmember Aguilar, please.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is for Assistant City Manager with regards to Lake Chabot Road Stabilization Project. I'm just trying to figure out if the direction was not clear to open the road. That's what I interpreted. As a council member, I think the message was not clear. Essentially, I'd like the road for the community to be open on both ends. And so there's 4 different aspects for this. My question, piggybacking on what Councilmember Viveros Walton said, why was this not included in the recommended portion with the total funding of Lake Chabot Road Stabilization Project?
I'll start with Assistant City Manager, and he can do with it what he wants.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Aguilar, I will clarify that staff has always been operating under the assumption that the ultimate goal is to reopen Lake Chabot Road to 2-way traffic. Now, a lot has happened over the past several years, frankly, that has frankly deviated staff's attention from that ultimate goal. There were discussions in committee and at this very council on whether or not interim solution of 1-way traffic should be entertained. To be very clear, the direction was clear not to open the road to 1-way traffic. Staff still is operating under the understanding that ultimately the goal is to reopen the road to 2-way traffic. The hurdle to that ultimately is funding. We know it's going to take in excess of $10 million to get that done. What we're seeing here is there are so many projects, and Mr. Ching just shared so many projects that are recommended but unfunded. It's a zero-sum game, and we need to figure out if we truly want, if the direction of council is to push in this direction at a rate that is sooner than later, we will seek from council very difficult decisions on what to not fund in that zero-sum game in order to get this to happen.
Thank you for that answer. I think with regards to the estimate, and I'm trying to figure out how to put this into a recommendation to, who knows, maybe it might cost $10 million to fix it, or if we get another estimate, it could be 700,000. So we need to go out to see what that would be, but we would need to put forth to get a report to get that estimate so that we can basically triage this instead of kicking the can down the road and waiting for funding. I think, the money best spent would be on a report or estimate or a geotech report to address the concern, and then we can address, we're working with the geotech report from 2019. Is that correct? If I got an estimate for my roof 6 years ago, the estimate's going to be completely different today. And, getting 3 estimates, depending, everybody has different pricing. But I'd like to see this on here, not to fully say we're going to focus all of our energy and give the $10 million to this particular project, but to work with, go out for bids to figure out a grant writer with a community development organization or firm to have a grant writer find funding or go out to RFP for that process. But I'd like to see that. And, I'm not the engineer. I don't know. We can give estimates, and engineering estimates are all over the place. Working in construction, so I'd like to see what this is actually going to cost. Folks said they met with ACTC, and it cost $700,000 to fix something similar. Who knows? That concern may be different. We don't know until we get into the weeds of actually conducting the study. But I'd like to see that and focus some energy on that aspect, because I think this is merely political in a sense of, rather than focusing on the safety of the residents in this community. We saw what happened in Pacific Palisades and in Altadena. We don't want that happening in San Leandro. We're here to care for the community, watch out for communities' lives. I'd like to make sure that we're working and, addressing the concern of council to fix this road to alternating traffic. So I'd like to see that project in here with regards to, I see it unrecommended but unfunded, but to figure out, to focus on getting that study done so that we can quickly address this concern of fixing that road. Those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Going to Councilmember Bolt next.
Thank you. Yes. Looking at this, obviously safety has to be key over budget. And that's obviously the angle I'm always going to take. I sympathize with everybody who talked about, the safety and the traffic concerns. And I know it sucks. I've lived on Doolittle multiple times in my life, and that's not fun. The speeding up and down the streets, that's just directly at safety. It sucks to hear that some of the things we asked for that we did, and it ended up not being a net positive for the community up there with the lines. And I can honestly say I kind of figured that, but I held out hope, right? It only takes time for somebody to realize those lines are just lines and I can go as fast as I was before. And that sucks. I do want to ask this though, because I've heard it before. And now hearing from, we do have direction to reopen to 2 lanes. So we don't need any type of affirmation of that to go after any additional funding from ACTC. Is that, if I'm hearing that correctly, I'd just like to know that's true.
That's correct, Councilmember Bolt. Staff has never received any direction from this or any other preceding council that Lake Chabot Road shall not reopen. So with that being the case, staff is working toward that direction. Now, there might come a time where in order to apply for a grant in order to make a grant stronger, that we may need some supporting resolution from this council. And when we get to that point and find that that is a requirement, we certainly will bring that sort of that item before this council. But otherwise, to reaffirm, staff has not received any direction from council contrary to reopening that road.
Okay, thank you. And then another part of this that I've been hearing and want to be clear, the geotechnical report that we're working on from 19, and I said it before, if we get another one, it ain't going to show that it's better. It can't. It's impossible. But we were asking for one at one point to go to a 1-lane road. And that we said no, because it would hinder our process to get back to 2 lanes opened. We were going to slow that process down. And additionally, on top of that, Alameda County Fire suggestion was either keep it the way it was, closed, with emergency route, or open 2-way, but nothing in between. And so that brings me back to the safety, listening to the professionals in charge. So we don't have to commit to the reopening of 2 lanes. And I was nervous a little bit about that. If we did commit to that and then just to get the funding, and then we didn't get the funding, but then we had this commitment. So I like to hear, I like where we're at. I like what you said. The last thing I'm going to say, like I said, I grew up on Doolittle, up and down Doolittle my whole life. And I see on here that we're going to pull out $4 million for beautification. And I'm going to take hits on that, right? As we should, right? We got to figure out ways to get funding. But if you asked me to decide between $4 million of beautifying Doolittle, as we have in here, right? Or a library, 100%, I'm taking a library, right? We've seen that street the way it is for 40 years. So I appreciate the work you guys are doing and trying to find funding to help these other vital areas. I wish there was enough funding to do everything, including the safety concerns and getting that road open, but we just don't have it. And it's unfortunate, and I hate to say it, but this is the job we signed up for. I'm done right there.
Okay, Councilmember Simon, please.
Thank you. My questions or comments are for now on Lake Chabot Road, and I do support opening it 2 ways, and I'm glad to hear confirmation that that's city's direction. That's what they're working on. I'm glad to hear that confirmation. And my question kind of ties in, Councilmember Viveros Walton, about the CIP and how it's funded. So maybe on one of your slides, you could show me how the project is funded. I mean, I know we don't have the money, but how, in an unfunded standpoint, is there a slide that shows the $10 million plus that's needed to complete the project? Or am I missing it?
Is this the slide you're looking for, Councilmember Simon?
Where do you show that the project is, I mean, it's unfunded, that we're planning to open the road for 2-way, which is going to cost over $10 million. Where in these documents are you showing that?
So in past presentations, we showed that the total cost is probably about 11 million, and that includes repairing the street. So right now, the condition of the streets is in a deteriorated state. The 2 projects that's listed in the CIP plan, one is proposed to be funded, and that is for the sites 1 and 4 at Astor Court and the slide closest to the freeway. So we're asking for an additional 1 million, as we determined that when we applied for a grant and received 2.5 million in 2023, that the project may not be built right away. And then when preliminary evaluations and design have occurred, then more information was received on how much the project would cost. So the engineer's estimate was adjusted, and for that fiscal year, we're asking for additional 1 million as part of the request. However, I would like to note that depending on how the bid goes, the cost of the project may go up or down. It depends on market forces, as we know. We've seen the bid prices increase by 40% in some of our past projects. So until we get there, we wouldn't know exactly how much the project will cost. And that's only for 2 slides. The other 2 slides are included in the list as recommended, but did not fit the budget. And for that estimate, we currently have available funding of about $700,000 for that project. However, we need the total estimate to build that in the future, maybe a couple of years, is estimated to be about 4.5 million. So subtracting 700 million that we have available funding, we still need 3.8 million to actually include that in the CIP budget for the next biennial, next 2 years.
So just to clarify, I'm looking at the 10-year CIP plan, the 62-page document. It takes about $11 million to fix the road 2-way. Where is that $11 million shown?
Currently, it's not shown in the 10-year projected budget, because every 2 years, the council will get the opportunity to pick the projects that you would like to fund. So in this biennial budget, this is the project list that staff is recommending before you. Now, after these 2 years, then even if we project the projects for the next 10 years, those projects may change. As we finish this biennial budget and the new biennial budget comes to pass, then council can decide again which projects they would like to fund, you would like to fund.
So if the funding comes from outside sources like ACTC that we're hearing, do you show that in your CIP?
Yes, we do. So it's not on in this presentation. It was in the prior presentation where we identified the funding sources that will fund the projects. And in looking at that table in the past presentation, it would be the funding fund the 150 fund, which is the fund for grant funding that we received and awarded to the city.
Okay, for like page 9, for example, in the 62-page document, I see projects going out for 8, 10 years, funding for years 3 through 10.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because the city is funding those. We have funding for that.
Correct.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
So Lake Chabot, we don't have funding for that.
it's not shown currently in years, in the 3rd year through the 10th year.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, so the projects that are shown in years 3 to 10 right now in the current CIP document are the annual projects that we know that we do on an annual basis. So that's what we show being funded in years 3 to 10, because those are known expenses that we can kind of with certainty project that we will be needing budget for. Any particular projects that we think we may fund, specific individual projects that we may think we may fund in 3 to 10, those aren't shown yet because we don't have certainty of the funding in 3 to 10. And those will be considered again when we come back in 2 years to do the detailed budget for the next 2 CIP year cycle.
Okay, and one more follow-up question is schedule to open the road to two-way traffic schedule. Sounds like we're working on it. We're going to talk to ACTC, but do we have a defined schedule? Like 2 years, we expect to have this open. 3 years, I know it depends on funding, but do we have a schedule?
For what we have funding for the sites 1 and 4, for erosion repair, we anticipate the NEPA to be completed pretty soon, and the project will go out to bid, anticipated spring of 2026.
Right. No, I don't mean just 1 through 4, because my understanding is you can't open the road with just 1 through 4.
Correct. So
I mean,
ACTC also will have a call for projects for grant funding in 2026. So that's in our line of sight. We are looking at that. And from what I'm hearing with the direction of council, yes, we can seek that funding and seek for funding for the Lake Chabot project in its entirety. However, the schedule for everything, because we don't have current funding for the 2 other sites, it's hard to create a schedule when that will happen. If we get awarded the grant funds in 2026, that still takes time. But at that time, and we know that we are fully funded, then we can project when we can repair the 2 other sites.
I'd be interested to see a schedule making some assumptions of when you'd be getting funding from ACTC, just so we have a milestone to reach other than we're working on it.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Councilmember Azevedo next.
Right, thank you for your presentation. I have a few questions. Most of them got answered about Lake Chabot, but Lake Chabot, we need $4.5 million as we've been talking. Well, the total project's $4.5 million, and we have $714,000. What are we using that $714,000 for right now? I mean, I'm kind of confused. I know we're still looking to try to open it 2 ways. We're moving forward with that, but what are we using the money with that we have already?
So just a point of clarification. So the 4.5 million is only for two slides. That's not part of the proposed CIP budget. So the 700,000 was previously allocated for that project even before the 2022 winter storm that caused the erosion on the two other slides to worsen, right? One became worse, one happened, it's a new site to repair. So currently, because there's not fully funded, the 714,000 that's in that project is sitting there until we have full funding. Then we can start using that towards designing and constructing the project.
Okay. My next question is about a project that's recommended but underfunded. We're already starting the underground and utilities on East 14 near 150th. We need an additional 1.6 million. So we're working on the project right now. What's going to happen? We're just working on the project until we run out of money, or how does that work? Or we just run in debt on it, or how is that working, our project?
Councilmember, I just want to clarify, are you referring to row 18?
Number 18, yeah.
Row 18, okay.
Right after Lake Chabot. It's in my district.
Okay, so currently,
so are we moving the utilities from poles to underground, or what's exactly going on there?
correct. So that's one of the scope of work of the project. Other scope is for the city to install pedestrian lighting, safety lighting along that corridor. So the money that you see here, 1.6 million that we need, is actually the city portion of the entire project. Currently, where the project is we're obtaining approvals from the different utility companies, and because they're a big part of the project, they'll be paying for majority of it, but a small portion would be the cities.
Okay. All right, my next question is another project that's recommended but underfunded. The roofing project for fiscal year 26-27. We need $1 million for that. Is there a specific roof on a building that we need to get fixed, or is that just in general for general maintenance, or is there something that's really in need right now?
I believe that there is, and it's I hope I remember this correctly. It's fire stations 10 and 11 that were projected to have reached the end of life for the second year of the biennial budget. But because roofing projects are mainly funded through general fund, that was a little challenging to put money towards the roofing projects.
My last question is, I see on page 4 where it says traffic signal improvements, and we have $0 for 2 years and for the total budget. I get a lot of complaints about East 14th Street, where 150th and different areas where they're going to the freeway 580, that the light doesn't turn, like early in the morning, 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. We have people waiting and waiting and waiting, and eventually some of them say they just go through the red light. Have we looked into that? Because it says that we're not going to make any improvements. I was wondering if we were going to change anything about that.
So East 14th is actually a state highway.
Okay. So,
Under Caltrans, yes.
Okay. So we don't deal with the lights on.
Right.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I heard earlier somebody on the council talk about some of the decisions we made around Lake Chabot Road being political, and I just want to clarify that for me, it really has. I want to really appreciate all of the work that staff has put into providing information to us and trying to make a decision that is going to enable us as a city to be able to get the funding to pay for the repairs. And I'm really glad that it has been affirmed countless times that the intention is to open the road 2 ways. And so we want to enable staff to be able to do so. I also want to make sure that we're really realistic. I have the privilege of sitting on ACTC for Supervisor Tam and have committed to the residents of Bay Vista that I will continue to ask questions at ACTC about the potential funding opportunities. That being said, the next funding cycle is not until October 2026. And I will say that in the last round in 2024, we funded projects through the year 29-30. So we have to be realistic about how much time will actually pass, even if we could get the funding. As staff mentioned, it's not like it can immediately get done. There will also be, with all projects, especially with ACTC, it must go through an equity lens. also have matched funding. So there's going to be a lot of different variables. And so I want us as council members to not make empty promises. Let's just be realistic about what actually needs to be done so that we can actually proactively work towards that. These are all very real things. To say that, oh, well, this project could potentially be just $700,000. We've seen reports over and over and over again about what our damage is on our side. I've spoken to Supervisor Tam about this. She recognizes that there's a difference in that. And so I just want us, especially with this, like this entire CIP list that we're looking at, like I want to focus on all of the streets that need to be funded in San Leandro. We've not talked about that. The parks that need to be funded, the storm drains that are going to cost us even more money if we don't put more money towards it. The sanitary sewers, we've talked about this in finance when I was on finance about how we need funding for these things, bike and ped. I just want to make sure to uplift those things because those are the things that I'm constantly getting emails about in other parts of the community. I also really want to uplift that. I'm really happy that staff, and I want to give a shout out to the mayor for working really hard to help find and push funding for the MacArthur Roundabout, because that is also a very serious need in the community. That is a real danger for pedestrians and drivers alike. And so I just want to make sure that we're focused on all of our projects and not spending time specifically talking about just one. And I'm not saying that it does not matter because clearly there's a lot of council support, but I want us to spend time uplifting projects and things that are affecting the entire city.
Okay, so I want to take the opportunity to go since I've not spoken yet. So this is, I think, for city chief engineer, city engineer. Thank you, capital C, city engineer. So to be clear, we have a lot of historical information about the geology of Lake Chabot Road, correct?
That is correct.
And we are currently doing additional borings, core samples to get some current insight to supplement that knowledge.
That is correct. So the item that came back in February.
No.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I have.
Excuse me. Yes.
So we've got historical information. We're updating that information, and that will generate a report when? In terms of the current state of the geology.
That I would have to get back to you on, but I know the borings
Will it be December or will it be
sooner than December? Yeah, it would probably be sometime in the fall at the latest because the borings have been completed and the LiDAR survey has been completed.
Perfect. Cost estimates. One of the things that I keep hearing at ACTC or when we talk in Washington, like, what's it going to cost? How much money do you need? The estimates that we have, will those be updated in a way that we can say with some level of authority, the right number is approximately $11 million or $5 million or whatever the number is? Are we at some point in the immediate future, within the next 6 months, going to have some sort of a number that we can take to a government agency, a congressional representative, and say, this is what we're trying to fund?
I do not believe that was on the current plan to update the cost estimate for slides 2 and 3, but if that's the direction we received tonight, we can certainly double that effort down to do a revised cost estimate for 2 and 3.
Yeah, so I want to be very clear on what I believe. So I think it's very clear that we want to open it 2 ways. I think that's always been the direction. It's just like, what's the pace at which you do that? I think there's a lot of ambiguity because we're talking about a 10-year plan that's really a 2-year plan that kind of is subject to change. And so let me just be very clear on my interest. I want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of what that road costs. Because literally when I speak to Congresswoman Simon, or when I'm talking to Eric Swalwell, Congressman Swalwell, right? They ask these very questions. How much money do you need? And we need to be able to speak with authority on what that number is. So that's my first ask. The second thing that I want to talk about is the unfunded projects. So if we can go to, I think it's recommended but unfunded, slide number 6, was it? 5, 6, this one, here we go. The next page, this page. I'm a little bit unclear. Line 17. Is that slides 1 and 2, or is that 1 and 4, or is that 2 and 3?
I believe that is slides 2 and 3, as I believe Engineering Manager Ching did it.
That is correct. Slides 2 and 3.
Perfect. Let's go to the next page. Okay, so now we've got things that you're not recommended, and that's not recommended for funding, or that it's not recommended that we deal with these problems.
It's not recommended at this time because, as I stated earlier, like the Casa Peralta, we do need to. It's been on a project for many years, and we need to reevaluate how much it actually costs to renovate. So the money, the budget that was estimated originally may not be relevant at this point.
So one of the challenges, and I know that council members have talked about this, 5-year, 2-year, 10-year. Part of the things that I struggle with is that I think the council for Casa Peralta allocated money, originally $3 million, maybe when you were starting, Councilmember Aguilar, that was, 5, 6 more years ago, 7 years ago. And I feel like things go onto the list, but they don't necessarily get moved forward. And sometimes we say, well, it's because the cost has grown. And I think we've currently have a policy that we won't work on anything until it's fully funded. But we keep chasing the fully funding, and the longer it takes to fully fund, the more the cost grows, and then we just don't get things done. So from a policy perspective, as we look to build a list that we can actually manage, I think we need to look beyond what is currently fully funded so that we can say, this is what we want to fund, this is what we're going to pursue funding, here's the cost. So when we go to Washington, when we go to ACTC, when we go to MTC, et cetera, that we know what we're pursuing. So I'm going to come back around. I am sensitive to time, so I'm going to look for another motion if someone wants to extend. And if so, I want to make sure that that extension is respectful of the fact that we have to vote, and that everyone, once we go around again, everyone should have a fair chance to speak. So I'm going to, you have the floor, Councilmember Aguilar.
I'd like to extend this to 11 o'clock.
Do I have a second for 11 o'clock? I want to second that motion. So I do want to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. If people are going to go a second go around, if not, because people can just remain silent and we can vote, right? So this is where people kind of express their preferences through how they choose to interact. So we've got a motion and a second to extend to 11 o'clock. Please vote.
We have 4 yes votes and 3 no votes.
Okay, let us continue. So going to Councilmember Simon.
Yeah, I'm going to go real fast because I'm hoping we're done by 10:45. I just want to say, in addition to Lake Chabot Road, we, of course, council members want all of our projects to be funded. It's not just Lake Chabot Road. So I just want to highlight the importance of a revenue measure for us council members to have a dialogue and a reminder. Revenue measure is so important. Council did not approve, I forgot the number. It was a pretty big number for staff to prepare for that revenue measure. Council did not approve that. And I expect that to be coming back, hopefully if there's some savings or something. But please, let's help get a revenue measure going because we got to fund all the districts, not just Lake Chabot Road. And Casa Peralta, that example, that is a beautiful building, so much history. We saw at the Cherry Festival. It is just degrading. It's falling apart. And it's a shame for us to let it crumble in front of us. Perfect opportunity for revenue measure. I'm ready to vote. Thank you.
Councilmember Aguilar.
Thank you, Mayor Gonzalez. I just wanted to comment with regards to, this is political. We're all here for political reasons. I just don't appreciate the comment of chastising my comment. But with regards to this Lake Chabot Road, I think with that sense, we try to give direction in the sense of making sure that we get our point across. And clearly, we want the road fixed. We got to do, engineering reports. We got to get an estimate to do that. And we can go out to RFP with, council direction to find a geotechnical company to work with, to find a consultant to work with, to get a grant writer to fix this road. I just want to make this process easy and not make it hard. I think that, what staff interpreted was direction to fix certain aspects of it and then come back. Essentially, I just want to make sure that we're able to fix this road and get it open so that we can focus on, many other things there. We have $300 million in unfunded liabilities, infrastructure and CIP. How do we fix that? We're trying to figure out a bond measure. Where do we go from there, which is political? And we have to figure out how to do that. So I want to make sure that we're, also giving other, assessing the other situations of what is appropriate to chase and apply the funding. It's not just focusing the energy on Lake Chabot, but also focusing on what the 2-year recommendation is, but also supporting what the 10-year plan is to figure out, this is bits and pieces. Like the mayor said, we did appropriate funding for Casa Peralta, and we're getting recommendations not to move forward with it at the moment. But like I said, it just depends on the council climate and what our priorities. And I think that giving attention to Lake Chabot Road, given what happened in Southern California with regards to the fires in Altadena, Palisades, and what have you, that this is a serious concern, and we have a community doing a lot of legwork, and I support that. I support them. I just want to make sure that we're able to get funding to help prepare this to save lives. My concern is to save lives of our community, especially those folks who are prone to that, depending on weather conditions that this can cause a major disaster if we don't have traffic lanes open to folks to evacuate. So I think, with that sense, my direction would be to include this, to try to appropriate this to fix this as quickly as possible, but not to detract from other projects, to give this the same attention. So, like Councilmember said, I'm ready to vote on this item, but that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, and I just got a couple of just follow-up questions from a process perspective, because I am sensitive to this concept of 10-year plan, 2-year plan. What exactly is this, and when do we start projects? Only when they're fully funded, because sometimes it feels like we've been waiting for things to be fully funded for a very, 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 very long time. And in that process, the cost tripled, and we're still waiting to fund it, and now we're just trying to hit a bigger bogey. So this is a question, I think, as much for city attorney as it is for acting city manager. So if we want to kind of modify how we think about this capital planning process, where does that happen? Because I think we currently have certain practices. I don't know that they're actually part of any kind of formal code, but you're getting, I think, a certain amount of just nudging and questions and challenges from the council. And I'd like to make sure that we respect everything that's being said in a way that lets us keep evolving how we're doing what we're doing. So that's a really broad, open-ended question, but I'd welcome some initial reactions on what we might be able to do. I'll start with acting city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So the CIP planning process, well, first to back up a little bit, the whole reason why we like to do a multi-year, preferably 10-year capital improvement plan is so staff has the direction on what to try to plan for when it comes to all of the infrastructure needs of the city. That being said, the way the process has been working is we adopt a CIP every 2 years. Typically, it's to coincide with the budget. It doesn't have to coincide with the budget. If we so choose, we could choose to do it on off years. So we have a biennial budget. Perhaps we do the CIP every other year that's not a budget year. But the way we do it is we bring it to council in the form of some sort of a work session. It then comes to a public hearing, and then it is up for adoption.
So I want to clarify one thing in particular, because I think one of the questions that was raised by Councilmember Rivera Walton focused on the document that we have in front of us that we're approving doesn't actually demonstrate a commitment to reopening Lake Chabot Road. And in fact, it says, hey, we don't have funding. So in many ways, that's saying we're not going to do it until sometime we choose to do it. And so that's, I'm trying to reconcile those two pieces. And that's just one example. I think there are other examples. Councilmember Azevedo was asking specifically about the undergrounding, right? We're trying to underground some lines. So how is this working? How are we demonstrating our commitment in a way that's not just, kind of acting fancy?
Thank you, Mayor. Part of that is dovetails with what you have been saying, that here in San Leandro, we generally try to have full funding before moving forward with the project. Well, staff recognizes that the latest estimate on Lake Chabot Road was $11 million. We're not going to find, as a harsh reality, $11 million for Lake Chabot Road in the course of a 2-year process. So what staff has tried to do is we've tried to break that down into smaller projects. We know we have funding for 2 of the slides. Right now, we've identified a funding need. Granted, it's not recommended for funding because the funding, frankly, is sparse. But we know that the need is there for the other 2 slides. Hopefully, at some point, we can fix that, because that is in our vision right now, in our stratosphere of what we need to do, and then we can proceed with seeking the funding for the remainder of the road.
Okay, so then that's my concern, that's my fear, because my sense is that the direction from the council is our goal should be to reopen the road, and that we should be pursuing funding, whether any of us individually on the commissions that we work on, our trips to Washington, D.C., Sacramento, whether it's funding for emergency evacuation routes. But it's not clear that that commitment is there from this document or the answer. And I mean that really respectfully, because I think we've said the direction is to open it, but I just don't see that commitment. So I want to make sure that as we move forward in this capital planning process, that the words that we say are reflected in the paper that we present in some way. I'll let you guys figure out how to do it. But right now, I think I'm struggling because we're saying some stuff, but it's not reflected in our planning documents. Anyway, I'm going to come back to Councilmember Azevedo.
Yes, I'd like to motion to approve the 10-year capital improvement program plan.
Second.
So I've got a motion from Councilmember Azevedo with a second from Councilmember Bolt. Seeing no further discussion, please vote.
All votes are in, with 5 ayes and 2 noes. Well, noes being Councilmember Aguilar and Viveros Walton. The motion passes.
Okay, at this point in time, we're going to move quickly to item 11. Did you have any submissions for item 11, City Manager?
No, Mayor.
Okay, so for item number 12, are there any reports that council members would like to make? Vice Mayor, please.
Thank you, Mayor. On June 25th, I attended the Stop Waste board meeting. And just 2 things that I want to mention. The hazardous household drop-off event, there's one more happening, and it's going to be in Alameda. It's on Sunday, August 10th, and it's open to all Alameda County residents. Participants are encouraged to gather toxic items found in their homes and properly dispose of them free at this event. You could register at stopwaste.org. Secondly, I'd like to share that I was nominated and voted to serve as the second VP of the Stop Waste Waste Management Authority Board.
Councilmember Aguilar.
Thank you, Mayor Gonzalez. On Saturday, June 28th, I attended the San Leandro Library hosted a Loteria Drag Queen Bingo. There was a lot of folks that came out in support, who supported the community, who supported the drag queens, who supported the freedom to be who we are. And I was there to support the community and peacefully protest against those folks who think otherwise, and were at the library. So there were no incidents that I was aware of. I think it was a great event. There were spaces for folks to have their freedom of speech, and clearly the community were there to support the LGBTQ community clearly outnumbered those who were in counter protest. So it was a great event, and I attended. Thank you.
Quick reminder that on Friday, the 11th, there will be our second Pride event downtown in the community. Encourage members of the community to attend. There are many different events that are being sponsored by the city of San Leandro this summer in our parks, in our libraries. There's really just an overwhelming number. So I encourage residents to take full advantage of all the services and resources that are being offered. For me personally, I did have the opportunity to attend the U.S. Mayor's Conference in Tampa. Had the opportunity to present and brag about the city of San Leandro and the Small Business Technical Assistance Program. So I spoke on a panel specifically about that. I had the opportunity on the Technology Committee to advocate against something that was in the Big B bill. People choose beautiful or bad, depending on your perspective, but the big bill that was just signed, there had been a prohibition on regulation on artificial intelligence. And the mayor's conference took a very strong position saying that no, we should be able to regulate artificial intelligence. And in fact, the provision was struck from the bill, therefore enabling that regulation. So that advocacy work does actually matter. Also had the opportunity to speak on a podcast while there on good government, and talked about some of the neat things that the city of San Leandro is doing to drive efficiency and the use of technology to help deliver services more cost effectively for residents in the city of San Leandro. So with that, the time is 10:46 and we are adjourned.